What are some company secrets you can now reveal since you don't work for the company anymore? I worked at a White Castle from 2000 to 2003. It was clean, nothing super disgusting at all. All of the equipment got a thorough cleaning every 24 hours. The floors were mopped regularly, walls were wiped down, everything. The food was always fresh. If the burgers cooled enough for the buns to get hard, they were trashed. If fries/sides sat under heat lamp for 15 minutes, they were trashed. We threw away a lot of food. We had to track it all for inventory purposes and filled up a couple pages a day of stuff we threw out. Even when the bulk of the crew was teenagers, we really were trying to work fast and do a good job. Every year or so, they made us get timed on the griddle by a regional manager. Everyone had to do it. Starting with a clean griddle, you had to fully prepare, box, and bag 30 hamburgers as fast as possible without cutting any corners. I know not all locations are like that, nor are all fast food restaurants. But when I was working there, we did a really good job of everything. Just wanted to share a happy story. Story 2. It's been several years, but when I worked at a certain satellite TV company, they had a value system for customers. You're valued at 1 to 5 stars, based on how much you spend, and how much they value you as a customer. If you're a higher star value, they will do basically anything to keep you. You'll get a ton of services and equipment for free, and they'll bend over backwards to keep you from canceling. If you're a 1 or 2 star, they don't give a crap, especially 1 stars, because it usually means that you're late all the time or that you don't spend very much. If you call in asking for details or credits, they won't give it to you. If you threaten to cancel, no one cares. Also, there are special phone lines for people they consider VIPs. They never have to wait on hold, and only special employees are allowed to take the phone calls. Story 3. Viagogo are just corrupt, straight up. Not a little thing here and there. They're just a criminal company. They'll take your money for tickets even if they have none of those tickets, assuming they will eventually have tickets to sell you. If they don't get them, you get the ticket money back. An example of this was when a guy in the UK bought tickets to the Super Bowl in 2013, booked his air travel, flew to the States, booked his accommodation, was staying in a hotel he paid for, and was calling us every 15 minutes to ask where his tickets were. We were told to lie to him and say someone will meet him at the stadium. We let him know 30 minutes before the game started that he wouldn't be receiving any tickets. Viagogo refunded the ticket cost, but the travel, accommodation, and time wasted? Nothing at all, and they never had the tickets. Same for festivals. I took loads of calls from people who were told to get to the middle of the wilderness in Eastern Europe for a dance festival, having booked time off work and prepared for a 5-day festival. When they got there, they were told there were never any tickets. Just go home, write off the time off, write off the ticket costs, write off the transport, write off the preparation, and deal with feeling crappy for 5 days because they were ripped off by a company. Except it isn't that simple, because now they're in the middle of a field in Eastern Europe for 5 days. The bus that took them there has gone, and they have no admittance to the festival. So essentially, Viagogo were responsible for just dumping around 100 people in a field in Eastern Europe with no provisions and no way of getting back. Far from discouraging the practice, they love scalpers and give them preferential treatment. Super sellers. They get discounts, skip phone queues, and get a higher price for tickets than honest customers with a ticket to sell. If an event is coming up soon, the seller can meet you at the venue to pass the ticket over. What this means is if you show up and the seller isn't there for whatever reason, illness, decided to use the ticket themselves, just can't be arsed, etc., you have paid and have no proof they did not meet you. Bye-bye money. If you buy a ticket from Viagogo, I would honestly say you have a 40 to 45% chance of getting it. Edit. Thanks for the attention. I'm glad to know people are thinking twice before dealing with them. In the interests of full disclosure, I was working with them a few years ago for about 10 months. I haven't kept up with them or their practices. The above circumstances were true for myself. Others' experiences may vary. A few people are understandably panicking, so I'll say, if you've already bought tickets with them, you may well get them. Don't write the whole thing off. You'll just get a refund for the ticket and have no event to go to. And if you go to the event and the tickets don't work, you'll get a refund for them anyway. Just maybe make plans for if the tickets fall through, especially if you're in a strange place. So if a business is this corrupt, I have a hard time understanding how legally it's still allowed to function. So OOP makes what might just be misunderstandings seem intentional. And I mean, obviously, if there's a company that's like actually ripping people off and doing stuff like this, they need to be shut down. So I think there's probably more to the story. Needless to say, this was more than enough to keep me from ever using Viagogo. I've actually never heard of that before for purchasing tickets, but I will definitely not use them. Story 4. I used to work for a large smartphone company. During development, we used to go through phases: engineering verification testing stage, design verification test, production verification test, and finally, mass production. Each stage was meant to have checkpoints in order to ensure that the final product was built with good quality and any known bugs would be able to be ironed out before the product launch. Any bug that was not resolved would potentially have the ability to delay the launch, except that there's a thing called waivers. So the PM could request that certain bugs be granted a waiver, delaying the fix of the problem to a later date. No big deal. Every project has a few minor bugs, right? For each stage, there would be hundreds of waivers. Some would be minor, to be fair, but sometimes they were definitely not minor. I will never, ever buy an electronic device in the first 3 months of mass production. Wait for the second wave of production. The quality of the product increases tenfold. Story 5. My first job out of high school was customer service for Best Buy for 3 years. I learned this just from working the returns. I still tell my friends not to get too hyped and have patience to wait for the second wave of electronics so they get the bugs worked out. When the PS2 launched, holy hell, almost every unit was returned at my store for major issues. Edit. I had to look at launch dates because PS3 sounded off to me. I'm actually referring to the PS2, my bad. And while we're at it, we can include Xbox. Edit 2. I'm not trying to argue who bought working units and who didn't, nor am I arguing if the brands are good or not. I own both an Xbox One and a PS4 currently. The point OP was making, and what I was agreeing with, is that companies will put out incredibly buggy products because that's worth it to hit a launch rate than to move the launch dates back to fix issues. You notice it more with highly anticipated electronics. Companies aren't going to push those launch dates, and the advice is that having some patience and waiting a couple months for a second wave of that item to hit shelves is going to typically mean you're less likely to have issues off the bat. Story 6. KFC has teenage kids cooking with industrial pressure cookers that could blow their effing heads through the exhaust canopy if they effed up. I literally have seen cooks bread their own hands up in flour and then dunk them in 175 degrees Celsius oil as a lark. I've seen kids use boiling hot urn water to clean the caked on flour and oil off their work boots, and that water ran into their boot, giving them serious burns. I've seen kids pick up huge pots of boiling oil and tip them to refill a cooker as a shortcut to the slow melt method. Minimum age at the time was 14 and 9 months, though they'd hire them at 14 flat with parents' permission, and you could be a supervisor at 17 to 18. Stuff may have changed in the last 10 years since, I don't know. Teenagers watching teenagers with that type of equipment was nerve-wracking. Not saying teenagers are stupid, just the ones I had to work with. Edit. For some of the more common responses, a lark means for fun, a term we use in Australia, which answers another common question. Also, they would bread their hands over and over again until quite thick, and then dip them in boiling oil. And just like food, the meat on their hand wouldn't cook straight away, but it was a game of chicken. Sorry, I'm a dad. A pun till death now. To see who would leave their hand in there the longest. So as I'm reading this, the first question that pops into my mind is like, is there a manager on duty? Why aren't they doing anything to stop these kids from doing stupid stuff? And then OOP shares that managers are, admitted at 17 to 18 years old. So literally, as they said, children watching children. That might be something that needs to be revisited in the future. And if you ever visit Australia or live there, now you know, stay the hell away from KFC. Story 7. Try to avoid going to dental chains. Aspen Dental, etc. They push you to get procedures done you don't need, and your appointment times are usually as fast as the doctor can find the first thing that's wrong. Doctors are overworked, and this increases the chance they'll mess up. If you can't pay, they help you finance, but you'll get hit with a 20% interest rate when you miss your first payment. They also overwork and underpay staff, which leads to disgruntled staff who don't care. And like all public service positions, there's no backbone against crappy patients. You have to bend over backward and kiss their asses. The only way it works, and it does, is when you have caring, skilled staff across the board. This rarely happens due to high turnover. I had to get out when the new doctor at our office pulled too many teeth in a procedure and had to give the patient a full denture instead of a partial. He blamed the assistant and she was fired. The lab was overwhelmed with extra work from his mistakes. I didn't feel the doctor cared about anything but money, and I couldn't morally do it. I couldn't say he was a good doctor when deep down I knew it was a lie. Reasons I hate commercialized medicine. Story 8. Apple. All techs and genius employees are fully aware of widespread issues well before they're officially released to the public. They're never discussed at the morning staff meetings with management present, but are always a source of discussion in the 3 o'clock to 3:30 tech staff meeting. For example, it got to a point where I would replace an iPhone 6 Plus for the display issue, and sometimes I had to replace the replacement 2 to 3 times while the customer was waiting. It was embarrassing and frustrating that the official release from the company was that the issue was caused by customer misuse. We all knew the truth, and the techs with any sort of conscience would bend over backwards to do what we could to right the wrongs. That's one of several manufacturing issues masked as user error or misuse that we tried to work around. Edit. Since this is blown up, I just wanted to state that Apple was an incredible company to work for and treated their employees like gold. I have nothing bad to say in terms of the company on an employer/employee basis. Story 9. The Canadian Tire in Port Coquitlam, Canada blocks their emergency exits with metal bars to prevent theft and, consequently, prevents a quick exit in case the overly stuffed and flammables-filled building catches fire. Someone used this knowledge to make money. I'll take 5%. Edit. As stated in a comment in this thread, I haven't worked there since November of 2015, and haven't even lived in BC in over a year. If someone in the area wants to check it out, that seems like a very good idea. Didn't realize how serious this could be. The blocked emergency exits were located on the other side of the employees-only doors at the back of the store. I have a picture somewhere, but I'm at work at the moment. I'll try and find them and follow up in another edit. Edit 2. No luck as of yet finding that picture. My computer has 4 years worth of pictures, most of them sorted in terrible ways. Probably doesn't help that I used to make stop-motion movies and still have all the individual pictures. Probably better off waiting for someone who lives there to get a picture, assuming the store still does this. If not, I guess the coast is clear. If so, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. Good night. Story 10. AT&T does have secret phone plans. Depending on how long a customer you've been and how much you female dog, always threaten to quit your service, they can hook you up. You have to go to an AT&T store, not an authorized dealer. Authorized dealers can't do crap. They just sell the phones/planes and can't really do much else. Also, check to see if you can get a company discount. More than likely, if your company is decent size, they'll have a discount. Also, if you're a farm or something, you can get a company discount. Overall, AT&T will rip you off. They're betting you don't check all the charges on your bill and will try and slip some bullcrap in there. It's not the store that sold you your plan's fault. It's 100% AT&T corporate. I sold them for a while and just go get Straight Talk from Walmart. It's cheaper, and if you don't have the money, it's no big deal, unlike AT&T that will fee you out of the ass. Also, the "I got a free phone" is bullcrap, or "I have an upgrade." You're paying full price. It's just broken down into monthly payments. You might have walked out of the store paying nothing, but you'll be paying full price for that phone. The upgrade is a trick to get you another $500 to $1,000 in debt with the company, so you can remain a customer until that amount is paid off, because you can't close your account until that phone is fully paid for. Story 11. Regal Cinemas movie theaters has something called a per cap. Per caps are calculated by dividing the attendance of how much concession sales there are. For example, a low per cap is anything under $3, but a higher one is over $4. If there's a 15-cent variance from one day to the next, you had to fill out a report stating why. You couldn't state things like the obvious. For example, if I manage a theater in Minneapolis, and per cap sucked this past Sunday because everyone was at the Super Bowl, I could not use sports as an excuse, even though it was so obvious. Instead, I would have to say something like, large groups in attendance who didn't purchase concessions. I'll also shatter another myth that nobody cares if you sneak drinks or bootleg candy in. Just make sure you throw it away after the show so as to make cleaning the auditorium easier. It's marginally true that the theater makes most money from the concession stand, as we only profit about 15 cents from a movie ticket. The rest goes to Hollywood. However, in the summer, running all that AC, neon, ice machines, etc., it isn't uncommon for the electric bill to hit $30,000 or so. Plus, rent to the mall was another $60,000 a month, so, I've got a lot more if anyone cares. Story 12. UPS doesn't really look for the missing packages. I'll elaborate a bit. UPS does look for the missing packages. They even have a special department just for that reason alone. I used to work in this department, so I know how it's being processed. If the items are missing in transit, aka no delivery scans, they conduct the searches. If they're notified of the items being missing by the sender, in that case, they'll check the overgoods. Now, items in the overgoods are sorted by their types and tagged accordingly. So if you're missing something easily identifiable, like say an accordion, most likely it'll turn up. However, if you're missing some documents or something obscure, like say some kind of metal parts or similar, you're effed. There are thousands of similar items, and nobody's going to check them all. It's just not worth the hassle. Following so far? So, if they do have a delivery scan, things are different. If there's a signature on the system, they'll check if that signature is similar to the signatures of the previous deliveries. If they're similar, and they don't have to match, it's considered to be delivered correctly, and you can't dispute that. If you do, you can kindly go cry a river. If the package was left at the location, and it usually is, unless the sender of the goods prohibits that by the contractual agreement, it's considered to be delivered correctly, and UPS isn't liable. Nobody will ever look for such packages. If you have no proof for a package being actually collected, like no scans or copy of the waybill, nobody will bother checking. So all in all, yes, they do look, but unless you're complaining and irritating the living crap out of everyone, nobody will do much. Technically, each and every package can be found, but it's not worth the hassle. Story 13. Many years ago, I worked with a firm that evaluated medical school applications. Medical schools get so many applications, over 1,000 per year in some cases, that many of them pawn the initial evaluation work off to outside groups, who then subcontract to temp agencies during application season. The school makes the final decision, of course, but the initial pre-evaluation is handled by temps who might not even have degrees. These agencies are paid by quantity and not by quality. There's a strong pressure in the organization to process as many applications as possible, as quickly as possible. It's not a formal quota, but management definitely noticed if your numbers went down. I don't even want to contemplate how many excellent potential doctors my colleagues rejected because they were in too much of a hurry. Some of them likely spent their lives preparing for their med school application only to get preemptively rejected by someone with no medical qualifications. This was 15 years ago, so I sincerely hope the system has reformed since then. Story 14. Worked for a certain defense contractor that made some pretty well-known products. We also did a lot of repairs. The company pushed us to fudge our employee satisfaction surveys, so the score was very high. That piece of expensive tech was probably assembled by some kid with a high school degree, maximum. When a part doesn't conform to certain standards/tolerances set by engineers, we push the engineers to open up the tolerances a bit until we can comply. Happens a lot more than you'd think. NCMRs for miles. Pretty sure that company is struggling financially because it wouldn't get with the times on certain manufacturing technology. We had a few violations of ITAR requirements while I was employed there. Tours of certain areas were given to people who had no business being allowed in the building, let alone that certain area. All brought on by gross negligence. Pretty sure a few people were foreign intelligence. Money mattered more than quality. I've worked with some of this equipment. I personally know that when certain things failed, people have died. I've seen the direct effects of this happening firsthand. It was disgusting seeing how the equipment I relied on at times to keep my ass safe was pushed through at times due to deadlines and financial requirements. Story 15. Damn, in contrast to all the nerd/computer jobs here, I was ready to give some dirt on being a Hooters girl, but I think I'm too late to the thread. Edit, since some of you did show up and express interest, I'll throw out as many interesting tidbits as I can remember. Your official job title is Hooters Girl, and your job description is basically a model who serves, as opposed to a normal server. That gets around the discrimination laws, though they did have to fight it in court in the past. The first day you get your uniform, during training, they take a Polaroid of you that goes in your file. If your appearance changes, i.e. you gain weight, they will fire you. The shorts for your uniform are available in two sizes, extra small and extra small. The tank top goes all the way up to small. If you really have huge boobs, they'll order you a medium. No compromises on the shorts. You must wear a nude bra and a thong. They provide you the official suntan nylons to wear under your shorts. Part of your hiring interview is hula hooping. They want you to have a natural, all-American look with natural-looking makeup. My boss made me add shiny lip gloss to my normal look. I pretty much just wear mascara and a little bronzer normally. During training, you literally watch an instructional video on how to flirt with customers. Yes, you're trained to write your name on the napkins. You're also required to greet everyone who's within 5 feet of you. If you have downtime, you have to play games or dance so you look like you're having a good time. Most restaurants offer a discount membership at a local gym. You're allowed 1 free salad to eat per shift. Period. If you want any other food, you can buy it on your break. They discourage anything but salad. Despite this, we had to participate in the monthly wing eating contests if we were working that day, in order to maintain the appearance of the all-American cool girl. Yes, that was a real quote. However, they reminded you over and over that you better not gain weight. They stopped just short of telling you to be bulimic, but we got the idea. They drilled into our heads that each wing was 480 calories. I have no idea if that's true. It seems unrealistically high. I managed to get out of the wing eating every time by being the person on the mic instead. I was the best public speaker and the funniest/wittiest one. Thank God, because I had undiagnosed Crohn's at the time, and the wings would have destroyed my guts. Management wasn't particularly fond of girls like me, who were going to college and treated the job like a normal part-time gig. They're looking for career Hooters girls. Yes, really. A big selling point of the job is that if you're good enough, you can become one of the traveling models and do events and calendars and stuff. Despite being about 10 minutes from a major university, I was the only girl in school. Hooters was a stepping stone to stripping for a lot more of the girls than I expected. When we did weekly trivia nights, they didn't let me ask smart questions. They all had to be pop culture related so the customers wouldn't get mad, lol. There were a lot of regulars who came in every single day and often developed creepy crushes on certain girls. They would bring gifts all the time. It was company policy that we all be walked out to our cars after every shift. You aren't allowed to wear the uniform outside of the restaurant except for official Hooters events. This even includes walking to and from your car. We all came covered up and changed in a locker room and back. It surprises most people to learn that the girls weren't really catty. Almost everyone got along great and were very supportive of each other. As far as part-time jobs go, those girls were my favorite coworkers ever. Can't say the same for the management. In fact, when I finally left and went to Best Buy, it was a way cattier environment. I would occasionally get recognized by a customer when I worked at Best Buy, lol. It was always weird to me how people treated Hooters girls like celebrities. That's all I got for now. I'll answer questions if you have any, but overall, it's just another serving job. Alright, so first of all, there ain't no way that those chicken wings were 480 calories a pop. I don't care if they're breaded and slathered in ranch dressing. Secondly, this just seems like straight up slave labor. For a part-time job to have all of these requirements about like your appearance and only being able to eat salads and you have to dress a certain way and, I just, I don't know. I don't see, based off of what OP shared here, I don't see how that could possibly be fun. How could you possibly enjoy being treated that way by your supervisors and then creeped on by dudes that come in and basically stalk you? I don't know, just doesn't seem like a good time, but apparently she didn't mind so much. Anyway, moving on. Story 16. American Eagle Corporate Customer Service. In other words, the absolute top of the line for customer complaints when a store manager or the online contact number doesn't satisfy you. The number isn't even public. You have to ask for it. Holiday 2014 for a Black Friday promotion. If you spent $60 in store or online after using the 40% off coupon, you were eligible for a free blanket while supplies last. While supplies last is apparently a concept lost on the dozens of people who called to complain about it. We spent a week dealing with people calling because they didn't get a blanket. A week before Christmas, the exact same promotion happened. Our supervisor asked us to let her know if anyone called to say, "You said you were out of blankets, but it's 2 weeks later and you have more." But that kind of call never happened. But still, we got more "I didn't get a blanket" calls. Day of our holiday party, our supervisor's 7-year-old daughter was in the office. At one point, she was sent around to count everyone. We'd already gotten a corporate gift, a tiny bag of gelt valued at $1, so I wasn't sure what was going on. The supervisor and her daughter came around again and gave every one of us a blanket. So if you called to complain about not getting a blanket and I told you they were available while supplies last, just know that I was given one. Gave it to my mom. She gave it to her dog. Merry Christmas. Story 17. I worked at a UPS on a military base. When packages came back to use for whatever reason, we always told UPS that we'd donate the contents to on-base thrift store. We'd keep office supply stuff. But that never happened. One cat packaged all his belongings at our store and shipped them prior to leaving for deployment. This was at the start of the Afghan war. We didn't check his shipping label right, and about 3 weeks after it shipped, it came back to us as denied/RTS. We held it for a few months, expecting him to come back. After waiting, my boss told me to open it up and take whatever I wanted out of it. Trash everything else. So I opened it, and it was like a dream come true. Every gaming system, stacks of games, expensive watches, all sorts of good crap. Didn't feel right. Went in on my day off after hours, looked more inside the box, found a small address book with numbers, got in contact with his parents and explained who I was, how I got their number, etc., etc. Ended up generating a label that night for it and shipped all this guy's stuff out on the store's dime. Boss was pissed as hell with me for doing that. Pissed as hell with you for doing the right thing, returning the guy's stuff and not frickin' commandeering it? No, you didn't do anything wrong, OP. You did the right thing, and kudos to you for doing so. Story 18. AutoZone. Dox me and make sure I'll never work in another AutoZone again. Oh no, the horror. When a worker insists on selling you a warranty on your brake pads, shocks, struts, etc. in a very obvious wink wink nudge nudge way, effing do it. It's not a scam, for you at least. Here's the thing, AutoZone warranty doesn't cover usual wear and tear from use, but if the part breaks, they'll replace it, no questions asked. So while you can't return brake pads that are just plain worn down, you can totally return those exact same brake pads if for any reason they're broken. On the employee/store manager end, warranty replacements count as sales. And for what it's worth, you can find hammers for sale over in aisle 5. I can't even tell you how many lulls have been had non-arguing with customers over warranty replacement policy. Me. Sorry, this isn't covered under warranty. It's not broken. Customer. But they're completely worn down. They don't work at all. They're finished. You said if... Me. I'm sorry, sir, but unless this product is broken, it is not covered under your warranty. Customer. This is ridiculous. You told me to my face that if... Me, banging a mallet on the table. We cannot replace unbroken products under warranty. Sir? Customer. Are you threatening me? How dare you? Think me. No, sir. I'm only informing you that our warranty policy only covers broken items or items with physical... Customer with a huge smile. Oh, okay. Haha. Me. Yes. Now run along and do not come back until your product is covered by our store's warranty replacement policy. Story 19. I used to work for TWC before, during and after the Spectrum merger, and I've been waiting for this post. It'll probably get buried, but maybe it's for the best. Throwaway for obvious reasons. Used to work in the engineering and coordination. Before and during the merger, TWC was making network upgrades to stay competitive. Surprising, but some of you might remember the free internet speed upgrades. After the merger, many of these companies were abandoned. I think this is the best place to point out that this was not so much a merger as it was a takeover by Charter. Charter spent no time learning our network. In fact, based on former colleagues, things are still very separated 2 years onwards. Understand that I used to work customer service, so I know what our individual drivers and small network stuff was like, and that in big areas was less than satisfactory. There's a lot of factors that contribute to this, but for now, I'm saying this post is not in defense of those experiences. TWC responded to network outrages, such as detectable fiber breaks, very quickly. Interdepartmental communication became more of a priority, especially through the later years. TWC was always evaluating network conditions and budgeting upgrades constantly. Charter is the near opposite. Instead of having redundancies in place, Charter believes in, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, instead of preventative maintenance. They fix things when they break. Unfortunately, this carried over to major network hardware as well. Instead of incremental bandwidth improvements such as 95% constant utilization, Garner's comedy upgrades with a buffer, they would wait till it hits 100% and only do as much as people were using to save costs. This is the perfect analogy for all areas that needed upgrades, even site maintenance like HVAC and cooling. If the site doesn't melt down, then we don't need another van. Instead of learning how our whole house DVR service worked, which TWC barely got to stay competitive, Charter ignored the engineers and disabled the service entirely, and discontinuing it for almost 12 months. Charter also doesn't believe in working remotely from your manager. They let extremely talented and intelligent engineers be forced out of the company because they wouldn't move out of state. Charter tried to ham-fist an enterprise they knew nothing about, far larger than they, without input from former employees. They cut costs where TWC didn't, and honestly, I think they're inflating the shares massively. I know I'm coming off really disgruntled, and to a point I am. And TWC was far from a perfect company, but for the most part, engineering departments were the backbone and worked diligently and with genuine integrity that I never thought possible in a corporation that big. Corporate were bad, but they let engineering have a voice to a point. Everything Charter has done has been boiled down to cutting costs where they shouldn't and exploding spending where it shouldn't. Well, that turned out to be a rant more than anything, but it was cathartic to get it done. Story 20. Let's go for it. I used to work at Buffalo Battlegrounds, an airsoft arena in Buffalo, New York. Some of the shady crap they did. Understaffed the referees on the field. By insurance, we needed 1 per 10 players. Sometimes we'd have 2 for 80. 1 in the tower running the game clock/effects, and 1 on the ground. Favoritism towards the daily/weekly regulars and members and brand new players. If you were a decent airsofter but came out only like every month or so, you were kinda effed. We were basically told not to punish new players or regulars for breaking rules, hit calling, full auto, etc., but it was fair game for everyone else. They refused to stock certain items in the store because no one would buy them. These items included camo uniforms, upgrade parts, and higher-end rifles. The no one they meant were brand new people who had never used an airsoft gun before and weren't interested in any of that stuff. Customers who wanted to support local business were out of luck and had to buy online. I credit this to the closing of the War Store, the other airsoft store in Buffalo who practically operated on repairs for the crappy guns BBG sold. WS barely sold any new products and were much smaller. The arena itself is laid out like crap. All of us refs were also players, and when we saw an area that gave too much of an advantage to the other side, we'd fix it for balance. The next day, we'd come in and get yelled at because one of the bosses didn't like the layout and would go out and rearrange it himself to make it look cool. People wonder why they're spawn camping. I've got other crap stories, but it really comes down to they cared more about money than the quality of the establishment and the experience and airsoft community in WNY. The owner saw the opening for an indoor arena and went for it. It's okay, but it could be so much better if they actually cared. Story 21. You know how Wendy's hamburgers are always fresh, never frozen? That is indeed true, and if you walk into a Wendy's, most likely there are meat patties on the grill waiting for a potential customer. But when those patties are done and there's no customers to sell them to, those patties become tomorrow's chili. I guess it's not a terrible secret, and if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. But I remember seeing people react when I took the patties off the grill and threw them into a metal pan in the refrigerator. Same with the crispy chicken that they put on sandwiches. Those that don't get sold today, they're chopped up in tomorrow's crispy chicken salads. Back when Wendy's used to have a salad bar, today's unused hamburger buns would become tomorrow's garlic bread. Story 22. The news actually cherry-picks stories to further the agenda of its investors. I worked for NBC and ABC for 4 years and watched the producers cut out every story having to do with Ron Paul when he was running for president. You can't vote for someone if you don't know they're running. Also, the producers and reporters change stories without any proof, and it's taken as fact. Example, we had local footage of bizarre floating lights in the sky in our city. I had the raw footage myself and can tell you it wasn't CGI, and it was for sure not an airplane or anything identifiable. The reporters went around town showing the footage to regular people and asked them what they thought it was. A man that owned a fireworks store said it looked like Chinese lanterns. They lit some off and filmed it. It 1,000,000,000% looked absolutely nothing like them. They ran the story later, saying it was confirmed that the UFOs were Chinese lanterns. No one confirmed what the footage was. There was no actual investigation, just very poor journalism. Just at my 2 stations, this type of thing happened all the time, and I can assure you it happens with the biggest outlets as well. Story 23. Worked at Ricky's restaurant chain in Canada. Not sure if they're in America. Almost everything is pre-packaged, ready to go, besides like meats. For the pulled pork, you take this package and you microwave it. Waffles are frozen from the freezer that you microwave and cook slightly. The stringy hash browns come in a slightly large milk carton. They're dehydrated and stored on a shelf. To cook them, you have to put boiling water for a period of time, then you strain and cook them with a crapload of oil. The cooks I worked with would make their own food every night behind the manager's back, lol. Some worse than others. Even so, we got a 50% discount. One time I was working with the head chef. We got a big order, just me and him. He was rushing around. Dropped the top of a lid for the flatbread on the floor. Took it, wiped it on his leg, and said, oh well. It landed where we would be stepping all day. Also, there were some bugs coming out of the drains that were slightly larger than fleas, and none of our cleaners seemed to kill them. I think an exterminator eventually came. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. Story 24. My first job ever was Toys R Us. I'm kind of sad to see how poorly the company does now. I worked there in the late 90s, and it was a great job, honestly. Started in the holiday season before Black Friday, mostly doing reshop/stock. This was about the time Ocarina of Time came out, so I remember helping a lot of mothers and little old grandmas pick out games and systems for their kids. The store manager saw me a few times and put me in charge of the video game section, and I worked the pickup security booth. If you remember, you used to go look at the games along this big shelf display, then take a printed yellow and blue ticket. When you purchased, it would send a printed slip to the security booth, kind of like fast food, etc., and I'd go and grab the game from the locked room to have ready when you walked over. It was kind of cool being in charge of a large amount of high-value merchandise. I was able to do homework at the desk most of the time too in high school, which was neat. Then they changed the section to the R zone, and all the games were out on the floor, which was cool, more customer interaction. I still have my vest somewhere. I was working there for about 2 years, during the time of the Dreamcast launch. Furbies, Pokemon, Monopoly, Touch and Go Mickey/Minnie, and Tickle Me Elmo. Those were the days. Yes, indeed, those were the days. If you could turn back time, much simpler times, when all that mattered was whether or not the Spirit Temple or the Shadow Temple was the final temple in Ocarina of Time. Story 25. I used to work at a zinc company, one of the 3 still in the US, and this place was massive, almost like a town built inside a town. They had these massive warehouses where they stored the soot from electric arc furnaces. Basically, they got paid to take this material in and process it, then sell it. Money coming in, money going out. Well, this soot, or material as they like to call it, was pretty nasty stuff. It contained lead and cadmium and some other stuff you really don't want in your body. The plant was home to a large flock of pigeons, and they would normally get stuck inside the warehouses while trucks were unloading material. Well, there was so much activity in there that the dust never settled in the air. So much so you could barely see 10 feet in front of you. After a few years in there, the pigeons would be basically brain dead. Sometimes they would get out and fly for a bit before dive bombing straight into the ground. You would see them every now and then just come zooming out of the sky into the ground. One time I was walking back to the change room and a pigeon was just sitting by the door. It didn't seem like it even knew I was there. The bird let me pick it up and move it out of the way, and when I put it down, it just stayed in place, completely brain dead. I'm pretty sure deer and foxes would even make it into the building sometimes and get trapped. The company was very secretive with how much harm they were doing to the local environment. Overall, it was a terribly sketchy place, filled with sketchy people, and I'm glad I no longer work there. Story 26. That personal essential oil diffuser company you see all over Facebook? It's a vape, and they know it. The company started with Aroma Vape as part of their name. They had a whole legal argument drafted up, however, to claim they're not a vape when the FDA decided to start regulating vapes. The organic essential oil is bought from a regular online supplier anyone can access, and not all, if any, is organic. The carrier is just blended soy lecithin and soy glycerin. You get less than 5 cents of essential oil in your $20 to $25 pen. Oh, and all this stuff is made in an old musty pool house that the very old owner and his old girlfriend decided would be a lab. They themselves don't ever use the personal diffusers unless it's trying the new blend. In fact, almost nobody working for the company uses them as a lifestyle product, for a reason. Story 27. Worked as an engineer/program manager at a few automotive interior design companies. That $2,000 Bose speaker upgrade you bought in your Cadillac? Yeah, those speakers cost about $90 to manufacture and have the same installation process as the baseline speakers. Life cycle testing is fascinating. Your car is only meant to last 120,000 miles by design. I've seen tests fail where the rules are reinterpreted to get them to pass. i.e. moving a weighted bag from one end of the glove box to the other to pass life cycle testing. Most items barely hang on. Driving a vehicle past 120,000 miles is exceeding its estimated life, and you can expect problems at that point. That $15 specialty plastic clip you needed to buy to replace the one that broke, they're designed to break on removal, while fixing something costs around 5 cents to produce, and the service department has hundreds of them in the back. Markups for service parts are unbelievable. Every plant that I've worked with is controlled chaos. The only time they seem to get their crap together is when the customer comes in for an audit. Every other day, I wonder how a car ever actually gets built. Story 28. All those puppy stores in AZ get their dogs from puppy mills. Many brought in parvo to the store or have gone hypo. Many cases of internal and external parasites, super filthy, or possibly were abused where they came from before. The employees who care for them are not certified vet techs, just people who like dogs. Those people give the dogs vaccines and prescription meds, not prescribed by an actual vet or under vet, say so, which is illegal. Had no proper training. Papers for pups have been faked. Dogs have been claimed to be a certain breed, but actually weren't. The manager for one of the stores is effing one of the company's owners, and that owner paid off one of my city's councilmen. Don't get me started on the financing. You're effing screwed if you don't pay full price in 3 months. It's effing disgusting what the company gets away with and then creates this wonderful illusion for customers like they care so much in this and that. Bullcrap. So adopt. Don't shop. Story 29. Worked at a small Australian restaurant. Back before 2011, the kangaroo burgers were real kangaroo. Really good too. But prices changed and the kangaroo is now the same beef patty that they use for the normal burgers. The only difference is the bun and the $5 upcharge for kangaroo meat. Also, the wings people were served were normally sitting in the hot kitchen for hours before anyone ate them. And no, I don't mean like cooked wings sitting under a warming light. I mean the raw chicken wings sat in a huge bowl until someone ordered some. Then the chef prepared them. Had a few chefs quit because they knew that was wrong. If you wanted wings, you better order them as soon as we open or during a rush when maybe the chefs had to grab more out of the fridge. Place is still in business after all these years and I have no clue how. They changed to a macaroni and cheese restaurant in 2012, but still serve the same kangaroo burger and nasty wings. And heard it's the same a-hole manager, but that's a tale for a different time. So I live in the United States, and I'm learning so much today about the disgustingness that goes on in Australia in their kitchens. So you've got 14-year-olds preparing your food at KFC, and now I didn't even know that they ate kangaroo. Like, you guys actually eat kangaroo down under? Had no idea. I'm bringing my own food if I ever go there. Story 30. I'm in medicine and my oldest friend is in pharmaceuticals. So he was given the opportunity to resign from his last job a couple years back. During our lunch following that event, wherein he did resign, he starts spilling the beans about this place, venting. He proceeds to tell me that this company was selling compounds for insane amounts of money. Apparently, the insurance company didn't care what dollar amount they had to pay out because all the money was coming through the VA and other government funding. The company grew from something like $3 million annual revenue to $300 million in a year's time after they realized this. The example he gave me was a single bottle of their highest selling compound, a topical pain ointment, was being sold for $11,000 per bottle. Absolutely insane. Furthermore, scripts would come in and technicians would siphon off some on the side to sell to other compounding companies in exchange for a cut of that money. Apparently, the world of pharma is pretty dirty. Story 32. Worked at a Cinemark movie theater. 1. If you bring your own food or drink, we aren't allowed to stop you, unless it's alcohol or like a large pizza or some crap. We will ask you to please not do it again, but we don't want to lose customers, so we won't stop you. 2. Popcorn is made fresh daily. We only make 1 or 2 batches when we open and try to keep cycling the popcorn so it's always fresh for customers. However, if it hasn't been busy all day, you're getting 5-hour-old popcorn. Don't worry, it still tastes amazing. Every night, an employee takes home the extra corn. If no one wants it, we toss it, or someone will take it to donate somewhere. 3. We have to sweep the floors of each theater after every show. We don't have to clean under the seats, though. Please throw away your garbage. It makes our lives easier. However, here's a thing that might just be for the place I worked at, but it also may be universal. The night crew is a group of people who come in after we close and clean the theaters. They mop and vacuum everything. They clean under the seats and everything. Our night crew was paid hourly based on how long it takes to clean. Some nights they got done in a few hours. Other nights they'd be there until we opened the next morning. They always told us they wanted more hours and love busy days. They even said they wish people would throw trash under the seats so that they'd have to work a bit longer. So if you throw your trash on the ground, you get to be lazy and it makes regular workers pissed. If you throw your trash in the garbage, you can't be lazy, but the regular worker is happy. If you throw your trash under the seat, you get to be lazy, regular worker is happy, night crew gets more money. Bam! 4. We have to count everything. It's all inventoried weekly. If your friend works at a theater, don't ask for a free tub. They can't do it. However, our theater had drink carriers that we'd commonly fill with popcorn for friends, as they're just small cardboard boxes that aren't inventoried. And 5, please go to the theater we direct you to. I had gotten written up countless times because I told people to go to Theater 1, and even how to walk there. They go to Theater 5 because they don't pay attention, and then complain that I told them the wrong theater. Pay attention. Have some common effing sense. Just look at your ticket, you dumb Fs. Story 34. This will drown under the thousands of comments, but I'd feel remiss if I didn't add to this lineup Banfield the Pet Hospital, which in America are veterinary clinics inside of PetSmarts. I worked front desk for Banfield several years ago, and I always tell people to take their animals elsewhere. If you could corporatize animal healthcare, Banfield has done it. The doctors are burnt out and don't care. The vet techs care more than the doctors do, but even they give minimal Fs, and the whole place is more interested in charging you money than saving your pet. I remember one case where the docs, in the back of the clinic where pet owners weren't allowed to go, were saying, "This dog isn't going to make it no matter what we do." Then told the dog's owner that there is a procedure A they could do, then procedure B if that fell through. And also the dog will need to stay for several nights. I watched that owner shell out thousands of dollars for their beloved pet that wasn't going to make it from the start. For clarification, this wasn't a situation of, "This dog is going to die unless we do procedures A and B." This was the doctor saying, "This dog is going to die and there's nothing we can do to save it. Let's go tell the owner we can do A and B even though we know it won't fix it." In fact, one of the docs I worked with there was someone I had worked with prior at a privately owned clinic. She wasn't nice, but she seemingly cared about the animals. At Banfield, she gave no Fs about anything and didn't think twice about offering procedures or even medications an animal didn't need. How do I know? Because these a-holes talked about what they were doing in the back. I noped the F out of there after about 3 months. Story 35. Goodwill, a total effing scam. The CEO makes millions and the starting wage is minimum wage, $7.25 where I live, and team leads and assistant managers only make 50 cents to $1 more than that. It's ridiculous. Everything in the store has a set price, from a t-shirt down to a fork. The people who work in the back who take care of pricing hardwares and softwares have to make a certain quota an hour or they're fired. And they also have a book scanner in the back where someone is told to scan all books, and if they're worth anything, we keep them and the crappy ones get sent to the floor for customers. They also started an e-commerce when I worked there about 2 years ago that if anything came in and looked remotely expensive, was kept in the back and sent to e-commerce to be sold for hundreds of dollars. It really ticked me off because many people would come in and donate something like a fur coat, hoping that someone less fortunate would have the opportunity at it. Meanwhile, Goodwill is making big bucks selling it online. Not sure if it's entirely true, but I read online once that they were paying the mentally challenged that they hire less than minimum wage, which is completely illegal. I was a cashier there for a couple years, and almost every day I would give people discounts on things, or just let them take it without paying because they were charging ridiculous amounts of money for things, especially clothing. Some things were more expensive than Walmart. It made me so mad because they're making 100% of the profits because they're not buying their merch and then jacking the prices. Story 36. Worked in retail for 3 years as a sales associate at Macy's. Not anymore. Getting any card from any retail is a credit card. Just so you guys know, I was young. I didn't know about credit cards and interest in the inquiries people would get on their credit. But the goal every day was to at least get 5 people to apply for a Macy's card. The demographic around the area we were in was mostly old Hispanic ladies living off Social Security who had good credit and sometimes bad credit. My selling line would be, applying for a Macy's card is completely free, and when you get approved, you get 20% off your purchase. My manager said even if they don't get approved, give them at least 10% so that the people behind them would want to apply as well. I once had an old lady apply for the card 3 times with no approval. I didn't know how bad I was messing up her credit, and it was until one of my older coworkers explained to me the whole thing of how much we're screwing over the same people that's making our commission was when my sales started going down because I couldn't live with the guilt. I ended up becoming that associate who tells my clients when to come back on good sale days for deals and compare which brands are better. Just because it's expensive does not make it better. That works in some cases, but not all. Know what you're buying. I would have Venezuelans come straight from their country to buy housing and buy up my whole floor looking for hotel collection, this and that, which, don't get me wrong, is a good brand, but way too overpriced. Just go to its clearance section. Clearance is there when the season passes, and they gotta get rid of the merchandise before the new season comes in. Retail is a scam. When you add commission for its associates, they don't care about you. They're about your money. I've had coworkers stop me in the middle of my transaction, close it out, and start it again under their number because they said hi to her first. It wasn't for me. I liked helping people, not scamming, and I'm glad I'm not there anymore. Now I'm a hostess at a restaurant. Not a step up, but good for the time being. Story 37. Tim Hortons frequently hires people and fires them before their benefits can kick in, regardless of their employees' situations. Former coworker of mine attempted self-unaliving after she was fired. The managers knew her situation and that she was having a hard time, and she was almost 60. They're also just really crappy to their employees in general. I don't think I met anyone who's worked for TH in the past that still considers them a good place to work. I've been boycotting them since the aforementioned incident, and I hate that it's still so popular because it's cheap, while the employees get treated like crap by management, corporate, and customers. Also, their food sits out for a long time, and the French vanilla and hot chocolate is just powdered milk and sugar diluted with hot water, and all the food comes frozen. The whipped cream is actually whipped dairy product and is microwaved from frozen to use, and the bacon is microwaved to cook and then sits in a hot plate until it's used. Story 38. I've been out of a certain lingerie store that has a lot of secrets for about 3 months now, and even if you're well outside the realm of the largest size we sold in store, at least my store, we were directed to get the person to try it. I once had a woman come in and ask to be measured, who was probably a 44 band if I was rounding low. Literally, the largest band that we sold was a 38 with triple D cups, which is still a half foot too short to make it around this poor woman's body. She didn't speak a lot of English, but she just looked so defeated, it broke my heart trying to help her fasten it. Also, if you'd ever like to shoplift from a store, this company basically holds the door open for you. I literally once saw a guy with 2 hangers down the front of his sweatpants with clothing on them. When I asked them if I could have them back, he told me to F off and asked why I was being racist. The policy around shoplifting is so in favor of the customer, it's unbelievable. So I didn't even feel like I had the power to call security or the police once he got hostile. I've had people literally threaten to kill me and punch me, and I wasn't allowed to call the police or get the person banned from the mall. I also had another fellow manager getting maced at her previous store, and the company did nothing. She's basically blind now, but received 0 restitution or compensation for the incident, and the people were never caught. I hated that place. I'm sorry, but if someone threatens your life, you call the police, whether you're at work or not. That transcends whatever your duties are at Victoria's Secret. You can't just take a death threat and roll over like that. Come on, we got this. Story 39. I worked in a company that developed quite popular mobile/browser games. 1. You have absolutely no data privacy. We can, and will, read the in-game messages you send to other gamers. We can see your password in plain text. We can log into your account at any time. A few times, somebody forgot they were in a player's account and accidentally spent some of the player's in-game money or something like that. 2. People spend absolutely ridiculous amounts of money on this crap. On a customer's page in our back end, we could see the amount of dollars spent since they registered. It was common to see 10K, 20K, 30K, 50K, 70, or even 100+K. The highest I personally saw was 500K. 3. The official rules and the way it actually works are usually quite different. Random chances in-game are actually predetermined. You will also quite often run into A/B tests that mean the game works differently for you than for somebody else, and we're trying to see which way gets a better response from users. I know that a lot of people invest quite a bit of money into mobile games, the pay to wins and stuff like that. But good gracious, like, could you imagine spending $500,000 on a mobile game? Come on, man. Jeez. That's a problem. That's a serious problem. You need help. Story 40. I work for a major television network. Still, I don't know if either of these are secrets, but I have two. First, news loses money. When there's breaking news, it loses more money. We don't do the news because we make money off of it. We do the news because 60 years ago, we got the airwaves for free, and in return, we provide a public service. Second, 4K will never be transmitted. I've seen the tests. We've taken 3 identical 4K tests and fed in the exact same video with 3 signals: native 4K, native 1080, and native 1080 upscaled before hitting the TV to 4K. You can't tell the difference. No human can. We watched the 3 sets at a normal viewing distance, then at an abnormal viewing distance, and then at a comically close distance. Everybody voted on which signal, A, B, or C, we had no idea which was which, looked better. Apparently, the upscaled signal looked the best, getting 47% of the vote versus 27 and 27% for the other 2 signals. Yeah, it adds to 101%. I'm rounding. But everybody pretty much agreed you couldn't tell the difference. Don't get me wrong, the 4K sets looked great. They looked markedly better than 1080 sets, and there might be some traction in acquisition. Shooting a fireball game in 4K would allow you to zoom in. Did the ball cross into the end zone? Was his foot down? Did he step on the line? Without losing fidelity. But as a transmission format, nobody's ever going to transmit in 4K. It's an answer to a question nobody ever asked. Story 41. I used to work at a big box electronics store. I've shared this in depth before, and I don't have time to type out all the crappy things we did, but I can tell you that there were not an insignificant amount of times that we had to tell a customer the computer they wanted was out of stock if they didn't want to buy a warranty or tech services with it, because computers are loss leaders 99% of the time. So if you sell it naked, the company actually loses money. So if you were ever at one of those big retail electronics stores and the computer you wanted was out of stock, there's a good chance it was because you didn't act like you were buying a warranty. The best way around it is to be receptive to the associate's warranty pitch and just decline or change your mind at the register, because there's nothing they can do about it at that point. Story 42. I used to work in an advertising company, not even a big one. We had like 20 developers in the team at most. We can track someone from a street bought what at what time. Then we can detect the whole pattern of the user, creating websites, other purchases, seeing ads. We can almost predict what product the user might buy next and which product should we advertise in what manner. All this is done without any significant input from user. User don't have login to anything. It was exciting/thrilling to see at first, but this gets extremely scary when you realize how much more granular data big companies can get, especially when you use their services. Definitely use any good ad blocker without any guilt. Doesn't solve most of the problems, but it definitely blocks some of the tracking. Tracking is kind of scary when you think about it. Most of the shady things happen when you don't see the ads. I was able to see how a person bought a PS4, and then a week later buys a game, and then we pushed ads to that specific user, and he came back and bought another game at 2 a.m. When I see this much of manipulation and data collection, I started to feel a bit uneasy. Story 43. McDonald's. This is less a company secret and more of a tip for better food. While in high school, I worked at McDonald's part-time during the weekends. 1. If you want a freshly made sandwich that has not been sitting under the heat lamp, order it without one of the condiments. Example, without mustard, ketchup, etc. For chicken sandwiches, order without mayo or without lettuce. At the last window when you pick up, simply ask for mayo packets. 2. For guaranteed hot and crispy fries, order it without salt. Since you'll likely be the only person to order it without salt, there's a good chance you may also get a larger portion in your fries container, since of course you want your fries to taste good. Extra tip, ask for salt and pepper packets so the associate doesn't get suspicious if you only ask for a salt packet. If they do and give you a nasty look, simply say you're watching your salt intake by controlling how much goes on your food. Most associates won't care though. 3. This works for breakfast sandwiches as well. Also, back then, for the same price, selective McDonald's would allow customers to switch out the fake trifold liquid egg in some sandwiches for a steamed real egg, the one in the Egg McMuffin, and vice versa. 4. To ensure you get your money's worth when buying a soda, ask for minimal ice. Many associates load the cups with so much ice that you're not getting that great an amount of beverage if you say nothing. 5. For hot and crispy chicken McNuggets, while at the intercom ordering, ask the associate which size nuggets they currently have ready-made, as if you're in a hurry. Order the size that the associate says isn't currently available. A fresh batch will be made to fulfill your order. 6. If you like the sauce in a Big Mac, you can request it to be added to any sandwich. Same for the real, slivered onions used in the Quarter Pounder. 7. Unless it's your absolute favorite sandwich, do not order the Quarter Pounder or Double Quarter Pounder with cheese. Neither sandwich is ordered often by customers, so its cooked beef patty has been sitting under heaters for a long time and will be dry. If you must order it, do so soon after the lunchtime has started, guaranteeing the patty was recently cooked and will be fresh and juicy. 8. Overall tip, you'll receive the best quality of all items on the menu soon after opening. Never go within 30 to 60 minutes of closing. High chance that many things will be dry, stale, or soggy. 9. If you go through the drive-thru and they ever ask you to pull your car to the side because your order isn't ready, don't make a fuss or be female doggy about it. Do so nicely. If you do, there's a very good chance they will provide you with a free apple pie or upgrade the size of your french fries for all the inconvenience. In some cases, nicely say you're willing to pull over if they give you a free pie or give you an extra small fry. Again, say it nicely. And 10, if you're a kid considering working at McDonald's, invest in good quality laundry detergent and or add borax to your laundry cycle. That greasy french fry stench will stay in your hair, skin, and clothing indefinitely, unless you're diligent about doing laundry consistently after every one of your shifts. Story 44. Insurance agents are all slimy pieces of crap. About 30% of them are scammers who cheat both the company and the clients of their money, and the remaining 70% are idiots who would fail a basic math test, and the only reason they can do their job is that the system is idiot-proof, but not tamper-proof. On the flip side, if you know your agent personally, bribe/F him or just be nice to him. You can get stupidly good insurance for pennies. I've had provided expensive life insurance to legally uninsurable terminal cancer patients, driver's insurance to hardcore case epileptic who should not even touch the driving wheel, and cross-insured all my fellow agents from all possible agencies/banks with unreasonably good retirement funds that they logically should not be able to get, if not for tampering. Insurance agents are a effing scam. Good thing we can scam them back, Robin Hood style. Story 45. Assisted livings are not always a good idea for your elderly family. $4,000 plus a month will buy you 3 meals a day, laundry once per week, and housekeeping once per week. That's a level 1 care. These are the residents that very little attention will be paid to, both by the staff and the management. $5,600 plus a month will get you into level 2 care. You get the same stuff as level 1, plus med management, usually done by underpaid nursing assistants who took an 8-hour class for their med cert, hopefully, and assistants with the dressing/hygiene. Level 3 is a mystery. These are usually hospice patients or private pay, no subsidized costs through partnered insurances. I have no idea how much this costs because at that point, your fam might be way above the care an assisted living is allowed to provide. I'd imagine it's within the $7,000 to $8,000 range. There are so many in-home services that are more customized and cheaper. I'm literally begging you, look into personal care services and home health. See if it's right for you. You have no idea how awful and dehumanizing assisted livings can be, and no one is likely to fess up to a paying client. Story 46. I still work there, but whatever. I work for SMY1 Card Company. We're contracted by child support offices in the US, so child support doesn't have to deal with you and your issues with your payments. We're told from day one in training not to mention certain tasks and solutions unless you explicitly ask for it. Oh, you have fraud on your account? Better replace that card, but not tell you to file a dispute to get your money back. If you do ask for a dispute, we have to tell you to go to the merchant to get a refund, even if it's fraud. Also, all the cards are shipped within the same time period. The post office holds the cards for a certain amount of time, depending on what you paid for. Express charges are set by us, not child support. Once you miss the chance to opt out of the card and want to direct deposit to a bank account, you can't change your mind. Child support won't let you because that means they have to deal with you. So they push you to us, and we have to give you a million runarounds until you ask for a SUP, who still gives you the runaround or just stonewalls you. SUPs are more hard-pressed about policy than we are, so asking for a SUP isn't going to get you anywhere. Story 47. Worked at Walmart for 7 years. Here's a few secrets, I guess you could call them, based on the questions I receive from customers. Walmart does not have an on-site butcher, and they cannot do custom cuts for you. Not sure why so many people thought a Walmart, of all places, would have a butcher. 90% of the store is sales floor. If you don't see it on the shelf, odds are it's not in the store. We don't have some secret back stock area where we keep everything. If it is in the back, it can't be sold and is costing the store money just sitting there. The back room is for storing remnants of pallets, cases, etc., and preparing items to go on the sales floor, not for storing a massive amount of items before moving a small percent to the sales floor. Associates get crappy pay, are treated like crap by management, and are treated like crap by customers. Of course they're going to be in a bad mood. Guess what? The assistant managers are in the same boat. Do you really think complaining to a manager is going to result in any adverse action to the employee? If Walmart took customer complaints about employees' attitude seriously, there'd be nobody to stock the shelves or work the registers. Birthday cakes are baked off-site, came in frozen, allowed to thaw overnight in a fridge before being frosted. Those hourly checks for cleaning logs and food temperature in the fresh food areas? Yeah, odds are someone had to test the temperature of 5 or 6 items in the hot case before getting one item to report the right temperature to put down on the logs. Also, there's a very good chance that slicer was not cleaned properly because apparently customers do not like seeing our equipment being cleaned properly, so Walmart decided it was better to basically rinse it off with cold water and spray it with sanitizer to decrease cleaning time instead of doing a proper cleaning. Those Pioneer Woman 23-piece sets that show up every Black Friday have been in the store for 3 years now because they can't be marked down for some reason, and they don't see at their current price. There's a good chance corrosion is already starting to set in even if you can't see it. Every Black Friday, there's typically only 2 items in electronics that are actually on sale, one TV and one Apple product. The rest are custom-made crap with special model numbers to identify that they're custom-made for Walmart using the lowest quality parts and almost no QA to lower costs. Odds are pretty good they've been dropped at least once, too. Long story short, these TVs are pretty much guaranteed not to hold up over time compared to other products from the same company. Story 48. Screw it, I still work here and don't care what people know. Office Depot/Max employee. We charge customers double on every copy. So if you get a double-sided copy, you pay for each impression. But we only pay Xerox per click, per sheet of paper. They, until just recently, used to make us split the order too. So if you got, say, 500 double-sided prints, they instructed us to ring the order, times 500, and times 500, so the customer wouldn't reach the price bulk discount as easily. When people bring us toner/ink to recycle, don't bring the boxes. They're literally dumped individually into a large cardboard box to be sent out, so we have to rip apart each toner box. We don't send them back to the manufacturer in the original box for recycling. So if you ever recycle, do us a kindness and just bring the cartridge. If you ever have, say, a really large or important print folder, just go to a FedEx office. At least the large ones with the expanded print plus ship centers, not the little satellite locations. They staff upwards of 6 to 8 people at any given time, allow you to pay for a rush, and some are open 24 hours. Depot literally has one person in the print shop open to close, and their production log can back up to as much as 48 hours because they don't have the staff to handle the traffic. So if you ever need something done on the spot, you're going to be told no most of the time. Story 49. I worked at Panera for almost 9 months. Maybe there are better locations, but this one was awful. If you were a part of the morning crew, it was fine. But if you were noon to closing, it was hell on earth. You were lucky to get a break. I remember all of my 9-hour shifts with absolutely no break. Not only did they not give us any breaks, they worked the hell out of you. I was taking a lot of college classes at the time, and I felt like I was drowning with how much they worked me. The assistant manager was the human version of Satan. She would never close on time, and after close, she would just sit in the office for 30 to 40 minutes. We'd close at 10 and be lucky to get out of there by midnight. Everything could be cleaned, employees ready to go, and she'd finally emerge from her closet of an office only to make us clean everything again. F you, Jesse. All those shifts I had to work when I was so sick. F her. She left that location, but now she's working in a bigger city at another Panera. All the soups are frozen. All the pastas are too. You're never getting a good deal for the portions that we give you. We got our orange juice from a local store, took the label off, and slapped on a Panera bread one. If you order a soup or pasta, someone cuts the plastic bag open, dumps it into a bowl, and microwaves it. The peanut butter and jelly used for the kids' sandwiches are just great value crap. Then we charge way more since it's organic. Always ask for extra dressing because if you don't, you're just going to get a teaspoon of it. Right after you're hired, you attend a cult-like class where you watch a video on the making of Panera Bread, where you have to answer different questions about the company and sample some of their food. It's weird and cringy as F because it's a couple of damn videos about bread. But oh, the company was started in St. Louis and all that other crap. I think the initiation was called Planet Bread. Hated it. Hated all of it. Story 50. I'm lucky enough to work at a very transparent medical office, but I used to work for a for-profit hospital. If you're getting a medical procedure and you're worried about how much it will be, don't rely on the office/hospital. Generally, they'll check the benefits only a few days before to make sure all the claims are processed and it's up to date. Some places may tell you a day before you have to pay a $1,000 deductible and that if you cancel, there's a late fee because it's not their responsibility to tell you your health insurance coverage. Call the member services line on the back of your card and ask them. Make sure you get the CPT, ICD codes, NPI, and if they consider the procedure in office, hospital, inpatient, outpatient, or ambulatory surgical center from your doctor's office first. Lots of patients call their insurance beforehand and get told their colonoscopy is considered preventative, so it's covered 100%, only to find out that because of the diagnosis code, it isn't. These little details can make a huge difference. Also, call twice. Some reps are absolutely terrible. Also, some things you wouldn't consider surgery are, aka mole removal, nose endoscopies, earwax removal, etc. Story 51. Worked at Dunkin' Donuts for a summer. This was at least true for our store. I don't know about others. All of this was done at the order of our manager, regardless of how we felt about it. During the morning rush, that decaf coffee you just paid for? Yeah, that was just regular coffee we put in the decaf pot to help us fill coffee orders faster. Any bagels that were left over at the end of the night were inspected, really just squeezed, for softness, and the good ones were saved for the morning rush. So yeah, your morning bagel probably wasn't fresh either. Those fresh donuts? They were made the night before at one store and driven during the night to all the other local stores. They were made mostly from scratch at least, but most were floated in a vat of grease to brown them that hadn't been drained or cleaned in months, at least. All the bagels, eggs, meats, etc. were delivered frozen and then thawed out. Bagels were sort of baked. Lesson: fast food is never truly fresh. Story 52. I worked for a clothing store that went out of business. They were well known for being cheap, but that was because the clothes were made in Switzerland. They never gave us real lunch breaks. Like, I'd work a 12 to 14 hour shift and get docked for lunches I never took. I was a stupid teenager though, and they'd let me run out back for a smoke once or twice, so I didn't complain. They'd have everyone work just shy of full-time hours, and if you were willing to come in and work off the clock, you'd get promoted. The boss would screw/promote women left and right as well. A friend of mine from there said he made advances at her and even told her that for a BJ a week, she'd get a raise. Oh, and the employees knew the company was going under a month before it happened. They told us to just work our hours, don't make a fuss, and you'll get your unemployment. Turns out that the day before the physical store shut down, the company officially fired everybody for theft, so all of us were effectively blackballed from working retail again. Most didn't get any unemployment, and we all had theft on our records. And those of us who worked that last day were never paid for it. We were like basically volunteers, I guess. So again, just have to question the legality of these working conditions. I know in the United States, for every 8 hours of labor, employers are required to permit a lunch break, or a break. Doesn't necessarily have to be lunch. So to be working 12 to 14 hours doesn't sound okay. And then the whole thing about theft showing up on your background report because of the shady business practices of this clothing store, I feel like that could ultimately be disputed and or expunged. It might cost you a little bit of money up front, but yeah, that's definitely not something that you want sitting on your background. Story 53. I worked at crappy Sears. FYI, don't make the jewelry sales rep thing your clothes just because you don't want to wait online at the register. I made $5 or $6 something an hour because as a jewelry rep, I made commission on our jewelry sales. When I started, I could send non-jewelry customers back to the men's department where they would have to wait in line and get rung up. At some point, I just have gotten a complaint because I was told I could no longer refuse customers who wanted to get rung up. They had me, especially during the holidays, ringing up men's, women's, and children's clothing, fake jewelry, perfumes, and shoes for hours, literally ignoring people who were browsing my jewelry counter while the manager of the jewelry department was either nowhere to be found or ringing up fine jewelry, which she, as a salaried employee, did not make commission on, while I did a regular employee's job ringing jeans for $5 an hour. Edit. There's a lot of piss, crap, blood, cum, and period found randomly in store clothes and dressing rooms. My friends across the row at Land's End would tell me their horror stories. Story 54. Jimmy John's. The bread comes in frozen raw and gets thawed overnight in the walk-in and baked the next day. The cookies come in frozen ready to eat. The tuna salad is a big-ass can of regular tuna, diced onion, sliced celery, a F-load of mayonnaise, and like a cup of soy sauce. No special spices or secret ingredients, just crap out of cans. The free samples you get from the kid on the street is called guerrilla marketing, and they're not doing it to be nice. The super speedy delivery is so you'll talk to your friends about it and advertise for them for free. They hire 3 people for every opening and fire 2 of them within a month. They make you sign a waiver if you do delivery that says you won't sue the store if you get hurt. Jimmy does crap loads of coke and is a huge a-hole. He's basically the Trump of fast food. Story 55. The Walmart neighborhood markets have bakeries for no reason. The food is all frozen and they just stock the shelves. I had 4 different managers for night shift frozen food stocking. They had crazy turnover of employees because they didn't manage. They would just discipline you, and sometimes they would officially discipline you without telling you. 3 strikes and you're fired. They skipped parts of my training. The employees' training, you were never taught the right way to do things. The company has training required for every employee to be done on computers during their shift. They gave us 1 turn finishing about 1/20th of the training, and then management finished everyone's training for them so we stayed untrained, lol. They had color codes to say over the intercom that had different meanings, like they were getting robbed and stuff. We were never trained in what the codes were. They said it was our responsibility to look them up. Story 56. I knew this opportunity would arise someday, and I've thought about it a lot. Therefore, it's a long read, but I've included TLDR. I worked for a company that shipped used books in various positions within the warehouse for a couple years. A lot of the process was pretty standard, no real secrets in shipping. But the values and integrity of the company were repulsive. Their greatest claim is being a company that, quote, supports and funds literacy via donating books to nonprofit literacy organizations. Your purchase supports this cause, and you feel grand because one of the African children portrayed on their page will receive a nice book because you purchased one. Sounds too good to be true? That's because it is. 1. The company hides under the guise of inferred nonprofit. Upon shopping and reading what amazing work they do, you would assume they are, right? Nope. The company is a B corporation, which is a middle-of-the-road approach to being for-profit and non-profit. You agree to meet certain standards of the B Corp community, which upon assessment, you need only 80 of 200 points to qualify. That's 40% in any grading system, would equal less than an F. Along with that, you pay to be a member, so it's a paid third-party endorsement that you don't have to prove even a median score to be a part of. What this means to you is you're contributing to someone getting a padded wallet. They're not hiding this fact, per se, but the profit margin is higher than one might expect. 2. Acquisition of the product is also a process that's misguided. You will notice they give the opportunity to donate on an individual or bulk level. This is where a lot of their product is acquired. Book donation drop boxes and bulk donations from people and companies that assume the books will be rehomed in a way that supports the cause. Other bulk books, think Gaylord's full, are purchased for under $1 per pound. How much you can purchase, for equal or less, by the pound? The product they're selling is mostly free or cheap to them, meaning markup provides a hefty profit margin, especially since employee overhead is low. But more on that later. The exception to this rule is a lot of the textbooks. The price paid for student book buyback rates similar to most buyback programs, but once again, you're encouraged to sell them based on supporting the mission. You should get a warm, fuzzy feeling knowing you're getting paid for your textbook and supporting a good cause. As far as processing the books, a program makes idiot-proof work of, can we accept and sell this book or not? So what happens if a book cannot be sold? On to my next point. 3. Working a position in processing requires you to hit a per-hour quota, so the quality of the book is often misquoted. as in books that have missing pages, ragged covers, and heavy marginal writing being quoted as very good condition because the employee simply checked if the book could be sold according to the program. On the other hand, you may find an overlooked treasure, such as a book autographed by Martin Luther King. Yes, that MLK. It was sold and shipped at a loss to the company of thousands of dollars. Think about that for a second. The person that processed the book, another that shelved the book, a separate employee that picked the book, and another that packed the book. 4 separate people and 4 opportunities to catch something so important, yet not one bothered to even open it. On top of that, if the system had noted an overstock of said book, it would have been discarded. The entire process goal is based on volume processing and sellability rate, not value or correct condition identification. Hit your numbers or receive clarification, so no F's given by the employee. The program tells you if the book can be sold or not, and if it can be sold, it gets sorted into a batch to do so. If a book cannot be sold, it's sorted into a recycle batch. Another option is donation, which leads me to the next point. 4. If there is a textbook they cannot sell, for instance, a 1982 elementary mathematics book, it goes to donation. An out-of-date book that cannot bring any profit and is of no value to anyone is donated to literary partners. The only parameter to stop a donation of this source was if the material was culturally inappropriate, religion and such. Remember that African kid you saw on the website? His textbooks that you helped donate to support literacy are as old as you. You thought your money was going towards buying him adequate learning materials, but in fact, your money goes towards shipping these great big pallets and out-of-date and unfit literature to him. So the literacy they spread and provide is gained through material that cannot provide a profit, was free or cheap to the company anyway, and shipping to foreign countries is paid for by the customer. The victor at the end of the day is the company. They paid little for the books. Remember, less than $1 per pound at most. Paid for the shipping with your donation when you checked out, and they gain bragging rights and reputation about the good they do for the world, which in turn encourages more sales and donations and contributes to profit. Think of it like this. I ask you for half your sandwich while walking through the park, which you provide as a selfless act in private. I then turn around, climb on stage, and present it to a homeless man in front of a crowd of folks touched by my compassion, teary-eyed and wishing me blessings. I did not lose anything by giving up what you gave me, but I gained the positive endorsement from my fellow man. 5. To cut it short, I'll leave you with my last light-shedding secret. Employees. Over and again, they state how important they are to them, how much of an impact they have, and how they support and appreciate them. This is only true for the upper tiers of employees, those that hold positions in management and financial gain. The founders are intelligent. They chose to hire experienced business professionals to run as the executive team instead of self-appointing to CEO or CFO. Men that have run large for-profit companies that are well-versed in the corporate functioning hold these positions. Although you picture a light-hearted and wholesome company that embraces alternative business models, it's usually a suit and tie, standard profit-minded businessman-run company. The founders work as silent figureheads, with minimal involvement in any actual work. The next tier is made up for programmers, HR, and management. The remaining employees are disposable and replaceable, and they use them thusly. The advancement in the company is impossible without playing the corporate game, knowing someone, sucking ass, and keeping your mouth shut. You must never have a bad day, and a perma-smile is mandatory. The ideal type is a mousy, quiet, oblivious, and ill-trained pawn of sorts that will never rock the boat of suggesting alternative approaches to anything. The turnover rate is astounding, and employee retainment is of absolutely no concern. I think when I left, the turnover rate was something like 90%, which the company liked to explain stemmed from the competitive job market, employees lacking transportation, and poor work ethic within a warehouse setting, along with other minimizing excuses. In reality, the trainers are underqualified and passive. The managers are lazy, the expectations are way too high compared to compensation, raises and promotions are minimal, work conditions are deplorable, and benefits are modest. This is all quickly realized early in working there, leading most to quit prior to their probationary period even ending. By business and profit scope, it's cheaper to rotate lower-level employees in a cycle of high turnover. Turnover means no additional cost of retainment. They know this. If you don't stay through the probational period, you don't get benefits, which would cut into profit margin. If you were not doing well in one position, they would move you to another that would guarantee your failure, resulting in that person quitting or being fired. In long and short, I believe the greatest fallacy of the company is that employees that performed well, above and beyond work, is neither promoted or encouraged. It was overlooked by volume and timing, constantly and consistently. It's more important to quickly process many books rather than assess them properly. Quick picking for book orders trumps accurate book title, condition, and proper handling. Expedited packing and shipping were valued more than packing with integrity and precision. Customer service complaints and communication were valued only in the bulk you handled, not the overall customer satisfaction and retainment. Everything was quantity over quality, and an employee that had the work ethic leaning towards customer satisfaction and high product standard is not as valued as one that works quickly. TLDR, book company misguides you about their socio-economic mission and impact, pays no attention to the integrity of their product, maintains a business model that promotes itself by exploiting your naivete, and encourages high employee turnover rate. Step 1, want to be rich. Step 2, something. Step 3, profit. Story 57. I used to work in a call center for Verizon Wireless. Man, that's when I learned how real planned obsolescence is. I don't know how it works anymore, but at the time, if you had your phone for 2 years, you could get a new free phone. If it isn't free, you're paying for it as part of your monthly payments, but they don't mention that part. I can't tell you how many times people have called me 1 to 2 months away from their free phone saying that their current one broke. We were supposed to tell people, tough crap, you gotta buy a new phone. I always felt bad about it because they were so close to their free phone date. After a while, I started telling people to just buy some used POS phone off eBay for super cheap. Then call VZW and say you want the phone added to your plan and your previous phone to be dropped. By doing so, this did not reset your free phone every 2 years deal. Once the 2 years were up, you still got your free phone and only had to deal with the POS phone for a month or so. Story 58. Do not sell your vintage instruments to Guitar Center. There's a very tight-knit circle of people within their vintage team, as well as privately friendly buyers they personally know. Basically, any employee buying a vintage or very expensive, $1,500 plus, instrument has to go through them. You email details/photos. They call to discuss condition and price. What happens is this vintage team contacts their buddies about the instrument we've been brought during our wait for a reply to the original email, basically saying, hey, I can get you this rare vintage 1960 Gibson Carina Explorer for $2,500 up front, plus whatever tip I'm sure they include for the tip-off. Then that guy/dealer sells it for twice that. I put this together myself after realizing some of the instruments I brought in would be gone within an hour, before they were ever posted online or able to be seen in any system besides physically being in the store. Also noticing they were cutting our customers with their offers, and then seeing the exact identical guitar down to the serial number being sold online for twice the price. The Gibson I mentioned was the last example I witnessed. Not that exact year, but the one we had was a $10,000 instrument, but had damage that brought it down to $5,000 easily. We sold it in store for only $2,500. It entered the store 5 minutes before closing, was gone before we even opened. Saw it online the next week for $5,000. Same serial number, but advertised as with original case, even though it wasn't sold to us with it. So if you're reading this, sell your vintage instruments privately. This is a big reason they fired me after bringing this to my manager's attention. F corporate retail. Story 59. Enterprise Rent-A-Car, but applies to other companies as well. When you book a car, we can't hold an item for you to get it later that week. Often, the car has come in a few hours before you arrive, maybe the day before if it's a special vehicle like a cargo van or luxury car. If you ever get a free upgrade, it means we don't have any cars in your class in stock. Some reps will try to upsell you this upgrade first. Always ask if we can do a deal or discount. The goal of the managers is to have 0 cars on the lot at the end of the day, so they don't pay depreciation to corporate. So renting a van for the price of a Versa is better than letting it sit. Just be friendly about it, or say it's for work if you're from a recognizable business. The discounts are in the booking screen for us. If you didn't have a good rental, let them know right when you bring it back. You will often get a discount applied to your rental. Corporate does random 3-question surveys to customers, and if you don't answer 5, very satisfied for all 3, corporate counts that as a failure, so the location manager will allow us to take money off, even discounting a full rental in some cases. Be damn sure about your personal insurance coverage. While the extra insurances are expensive, $20 a day is better than a $35,000 write-off from a hit and run. Best bet is to get rental coverage on a credit card you already use. The reps themselves don't make commission, but they do have sales targets to hit each month. These are from upgrades, prepaid gas, or coverages. If the rep doesn't hit their targets for a few months in a row, they lose the chance for promotions. The actual promotion structure is good for interns and those right out of school, but it promotes corporate culture and sales over initiative and drive. Overall, the company wasn't bad at my location, but it's all down to the managers and being friendly to those helping you. If you're chill, booked a compact but want the Mustang instead, I'll upgrade you for $5 more a day instead of $40. That car wasn't booked out for 2 weeks anyways. Story 60. Space camp was a deeply disappointing experience for a lot of kids who were serious about space or science, unless they went to some of the advanced experiences for the oldest kids. It was also very underfunded and understaffed. Think of it like if an Alabama public school ran a summer camp in an outdated facility adjacent to a museum for the space age and charged you roughly $1,000 a week plus some additional expenses. That was Space Camp, Robotics Camp, and Aviation Challenge. Advanced and Elite actually got to build rockets of their own design from scrap parts. They most likely wouldn't be new, just a jumbled box of leftovers, and do missions where they made choices and weren't just following a script. They also got to do all the astronaut simulators, machines that were based on old astronaut training exercises, such as a chair held by springs that simulates bouncing around in 1/6 gravity. Everything else was very limited and described as an appetizer to get kids to come back for the more expensive camps when they're older. Time where your child will be quietly spending money will also be built in, so expect a couple of trips to a movie concession stand with the highest prices you've ever seen, trips to Dippin' Dots vending machines, and, no exaggeration, at least a couple hours out of their week at the multiple gift shops. Kids will also have the opportunity to buy Coke for about $3 a bottle, despite the cafeteria having all they could drink at meals. Yeah, we encouraged healthy eating habits, sponsored by your favorite junk food companies. No matter which camp your child or adult goes to, the people running the camp are 75% going to be people from rural Alabama who have less than 1 month training or education on space, robotics, or the Air Force. Most of the training will be on logistics and service, keeping the place from getting sued because a child was injured or yelled at, and avoiding sending any paying customers home due to their own misbehavior. The only requirement for employment is having some college credits, no degree. 80% will have been in the job for less than a year, but they're told to avoid telling anyone this. Turnover is so high that most people who've been there a year plus will be moved into management, where they then spend most of their time dealing with the problem kids and parents. Very few will stay as a crew trainer directly interacting with kids for longer than needed. Usually those who don't want to be promoted or who actually enjoy teaching kids, bless them. Keep in mind that many employees also live on site, sleeping in the same hard beds and eating the same calf food that the kids do, with no benefits, long summer hours, and very few winter ones. It stops being fun or worth it almost immediately. In other words, they probably can't answer your child's question about space any better than the guidebooks that kids are given at camp. There are a few that are actually knowledgeable about space science or history. Again, bless them. They probably will move on to another job that has more use for their skills ASAP, because it 100% doesn't matter at space camp if you know your stuff. You won't get a raise, be more likely to get promoted, or work on improving the errors in the curricula. No matter the age group, no matter what was implied, if you send your child to robotics camp, they will be building Lego bots. They don't fly drones. They don't build things in their school robotics league or like in whatever TV show. They also won't do any space stuff. There were so many kids, especially teens, who came expecting more and were very disappointed. I don't know what sales was telling them, but this is the truth. They will learn some very basic computer science and how a robot works, and they'll do some stuff with simple underwater robots for a couple hours, but everything else will be done using Lego. It's educational, but probably not going to be satisfying to a kid who's already been doing robotics in school. If they want to do Lego bots, they may get more out of school programs for this. Kids in aviation generally got what they thought they would, which was some basic military training, simulations, and for older ones, being treated like a soldier. Kinda hard to screw that last one up. Many who work there were also ex-Army that came from the base that borders the property. Space camp leadership is also mostly ex-military and run vaguely like military, down to treating workers like interchangeable cogs and housing and feeding them. The pay was worse, of course. Aviation Challenge was probably the most genuine and satisfying experience, and some kids that did all the camp said they enjoyed this one the most because of that, other than Elite Space Camp, which gives the most activities, education, and freedom. TLDR, if your kid knows anything about space or robotics and is serious about these subjects, they probably aren't going to learn much at space/robotics camp that they couldn't learn by spending a day at a space center. The most unique camp experience that they can't do alone is doing the simulators and missions, so try to pick a camp that maximizes those. If your kid wants to pretend they're a military pilot, then Aviation Challenge is fine. Story 61. The entire to-the-trade furniture industry is a giant scam, especially with brands that manufacture overseas. The retail price is a made-up number reserved for the ones with the most gullibility and money. A designer gets a 40 to 50% discount off the fake retail, the net, and then usually marks that price up 20%. They call it cost plus 20 to their client, but it's really just a 20% discount off the fake retail. On top of that, the item that sells for net at $7,500 to a designer only costs the brand about $800 to make in Vietnam, including the cost of shipping. The quality is inferior, but the consumers have been duped into thinking that's the level of value you get for that kind of money. I suppose everything is like this, though. A Louis Vuitton purse is $2,500, but there's less than $150 in materials and labor involved. A Lacoste shirt costs $7 to make and sells for $85. The whole economy is built on this lie. Profit is one thing, but some companies, and most furniture companies, are ripping people off by creating a false luxury and level of equality. Story 62. Paramedic. While these are my experiences working for a private ambulance, it's the same experience everywhere. After every call, we have to write a medical chart. Depending on the call, these can take anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes, depending on how serious it was and how much we had to do. We commonly have zero time to write these charts as there's already another 911 call, or we're late to move someone from one hospital to another. The supervisors are not people who are good for the workers. They're good for the company. I got a bloody handprint on my shirt during a call. I call in to the supervisor and said I'm stopping at base to change work shirts due to blood. He said no, put on a vest. I had to tell him no, it's 98 degrees, I don't even have my vest, and I'm not riding around with blood on me. And the biggest reason I have an issue with private EMS is right here. A company is awarded a contract to run the 911 calls in an area. They have to meet a time requirement. Between them dispatching us and us arriving on the scene needs to be less than X minutes, and that's really about it. So the company I used to work for had two divisions, a 911 and an inner facility, taking people between hospitals or people home from the hospital. 911 is not guaranteed money, while inner facility is. They would commonly send 911 cars out of our county to run those so they could get more. Not only would they send one or two 911 cars to go do these, but commonly 50% of our fleet would be running these, understaffing the county. There was one time I remember that it was 15 minutes to my off time, still sitting in a post, as the only ambulance available for a county of 500,000 people. Two ambulances began their shift, 911 ambulances, and were immediately sent out of county to run IFT calls. The only way to change this is through legislation. Have a county run an ambulance and privates can handle all the IFT calls. Story 63. AT&T hires third-party companies to take their customer service calls. From what I've seen, 9 times out of 10, the customer speaks with third-party employee. The company I worked for hires anyone with a high school diploma or GED. They regularly hired people for the past 3 years that I'm aware of, since so many people quit or are fired on a regular basis. Some tricks to watch out for. If the agent says they need to create a case or resolve your issue, and the case I give you starts with a J, it most likely will not be resolved. Only reasons to create a case would be to unlock a cell phone, send out a refund check for a credit balance on a closed account when it doesn't automatically do it, to place a phone on the blacklist if it's stolen or lost, or to reprint a wireless cell phone bill. The only reason you would need to go to a store is to get a cell phone or SIM card that day, reset your billing account security password if you've got it, or to close out an account of someone deceased with their death certificate. Everything else can be handled over the phone. The agent will probably suggest you go to the store to get you off the phone, as they're to take an average of 830 seconds per call to resolve your issues. I've been written up up for not meeting this metric, regardless of the reason. I once had a woman call in to ask questions over her account and services to get a better understanding. She legitimately had over an hour's worth of questions, and as I was in the middle of the call, I had supervisors telling me that I need to get off the call and get on to the next one, even after explaining what was going on. DTV, only customer you can easily get out of your contract by saying you're moving, and your landlord doesn't allow satellite TV providers. Agents are supposed to take your word for it. They don't need anything from any landlord. There isn't anything in the systems for that info to log on your account. When the disconnect order is placed, the reason why that's logged for the disconnect on the order, sometimes whether or not the ECF is waived. Always get the agent's ID for verification and to cover yourself. Agent IDs are always 2 letters followed by 3 numbers and another letter or 4 numbers. It will always be 6 characters long. Example, DH623J or LP8092. This way you can report them if it's handled correctly. Story 64. Nobody should ever pay full price for TV/internet service. There's always some type of discount available. If you want to negotiate a better price, just call and ask to speak with the retention department. It's literally their job to retain customers, and often they're paid in commission based on their retained revenue percentage, how much your monthly bill is before you call in / how much your monthly bill is after you speak with them. If they offer you a discount, take it. Then call back in a week later and see if the next person can do better. Don't be afraid to bluff and schedule a disconnect order if they don't offer you a better price. Just schedule it for 1 to 2 weeks out, then call back to cancel the disconnect order a day later. Also, if you're signing up for new TV/internet service, do it online. It's cheaper for the cable company, so they do offer better online-only deals, generally speaking. If you want TV and internet, just sign up for internet through their website. Oftentimes, a little box will pop up offering a TV/internet package at a deep discount, and that's the only way to get it. Story 65. Cellular carriers and the US government can't track you without GPS. Cell phones are always negotiating with towers. When they talk to a tower, they log into it. The login is logged and authenticated by a large bank of LDAP servers in that region. The authentication log includes the phone, ESSID, the tower ID, and antenna ID, time and date. Note that your phone will stay connected to the most powerful antenna, but will also set itself up with the second most powerful, and so on, with all reachable towers in the PRL. It does this constantly, so during any hour there will be 2 to 5 login events from your cell phone logged into the carrier's systems. The tower ID allows a tower to be looked up. The data stored on the tower, on all towers, includes full GPS codes. The antenna ID is where the juice comes in. Antennas are broken into sectors for efficiency, and those sectors are all separate from each other, with their own angle and antenna. The angle is something that's logged in the tower details. With 2 logins and 2 antennas, you can be vaguely located. With 3, the area where you can be found is much smaller. With 4 logins, we have you. When they went to arrest Kevin Mitnick back in 1995, they couldn't get an accurate bead on his location because he lived in the boons where there was only a single tower. They go triangulation using a mobile cellular tapping van, and they still got it wrong. Further muddying the waters, the logs from the cellular LDAP systems are too huge for folks to cope with. 40 gigabytes per server per day easily, so big data contractors are used. And those contractors would be a perfect watering hole for the government to tap for the data. If this wasn't bad enough, remember that your cellular Wi-Fi radio has a unique MAC address, and if your city has citywide Wi-Fi coverage, then they already have a spy network that can locate you. All they have to do is look for logs about your MAC address in their logs, and they'll know what APs you're near. In the commercial wireless access point business, we use something called Bluetooth BLE to track folks as well. Consumer tracking tech has come a long way in the last decade. Now, when you stop at an end cap in a large department store, they know how long you lingered in different regions, so they can measure the quality of their in-store promotions without using cameras. Story 66. This shouldn't be a secret, but if you call any tech support or customer service job, be nice. It will get you much further than being a rude, screaming, belligerent a-hole. When I did billing for a phone company, I would gladly help customers who were friendly and talk to me like a person. I frequently gave them freebies like additional features on their plans or knocked some money off their bill. Rude jerks, of which there were many, got put on hold for long periods of time until they stopped screaming and throwing tantrums. They did not get anything nice. Also, this should also not have to be said, but demanding to speak to a manager does not do anything but make you look like an entitled prick. A manager is just a supervisor who goes around the call center floor helping answer questions the workers have. They cannot do much more for you than the workers can. The real managers are in another city and don't give a crap about you. It's a hard, extremely stressful job, and adding to that stress is not going to get you on anyone's good side. So don't take out your frustrations on them if you want your problem to be resolved. 90% of the time, it's the customer's F up anyway and not the company's. Be patient. They're trying to help. Story 67. Worked at a Subway back when the tagline was Eat Fresh. Very little of their product would be considered fresh by any reasonable person. Bread came frozen in bulk boxes. Policy was that at the end of the night, you would put the baked, uneaten bread in the bread bins for use the next day. So if you came in before around 1 p.m., you're getting yesterday's leftover bread. Outside of the tomatoes, green peppers, and onions, which were fresh cut, all other vegetables came bagged. Again, the leftover fresh-cut vegetables were put away at the end of the night and used the following day. Meatballs and chicken strips came frozen, dumped in a microwavable container, and nuked for 15 to 20 minutes to heat them. Again, leftovers were saved for the next day. All meats came pre-packaged. The roast beef had this bizarre metallic sheen on it, sort of looked like fish scales. The condiment dispensers were rarely, if ever, cleaned, just refilled when they were empty. It wasn't a bad place to work in high school, but it always irked me that they got away with that get fresh nonsense. And I'll never forget the stench that sticks with you after you leave. That's the bread. I've never smelled bread like that anywhere else. Gross. Story 68. I worked for T-Mobile 611 for 4 years. I walked out in 2011 after I couldn't take it anymore. They made a change from customer service to customer service and sales. They said it was just rebranding and would change very little of our job duties. Then they made it required on every call, no matter what it was for, technical issues, billing inquiries, etc., that the employee had to attempt to upsell. Shortly after, the stats to meet company goals became heavily weighted on how much you could sell. So I witnessed on countless occasions employees adding the $30 monthly internet or the $3 voicemail to text to customer accounts and explaining that it came with a 30-day free trial and a call back to cancel it. Some didn't even tell them about it. They wouldn't know for 60 to 90 days until their bill finally increased. They would corner little old ladies with phones that couldn't even do internet. I mean, they could, but they would have to navigate their phone like it was the effing labyrinth to get there, and pressure them to add $30 monthly on a $10 cell phone plan. I got written up for being ethical and not trying to upsell when they called in for a payment plan and to decrease their bill. That is when I quit. Keep up on your billing for everything. Examine that crap and don't be afraid to dispute anything. Customer service isn't for the customer. It's just another opportunity to get money. Story 69. Have you ever gone into a GameStop and the console that you can demo games on is off? Yeah. It's most likely overheated and or caught on fire. Maybe they've changed in the last 12 years since I worked there, but those display cases they locked the console in didn't have any ventilation, so inevitably the thing overheated and stopped working. I remember when I worked there, the PS3 was brand new. Got our demo, put it out on the floor, and within the first 30 minutes of the store being open, the thing lit on fire. I ran to grab the fire extinguisher to put it out, but the fire had already extinguished itself by the time I got back because there was zero airflow in the display case. Also, I don't know where the rumor came from that we got paid commission to sell you on certain games. No commission, just your run-of-the-mill corporate minimum wage job. If the employee sells you on a certain game or steers you away from another, he's just a broke-ass nerd giving you his real opinion. I remember a customer coming in with her young child and asking me for the Bible game. It's real and was in our store. And I remember chuckling a bit and saying, "Are you sure you wouldn't rather have Mario Kart or another game that's actually fun?" She stormed out of our store ranting about how GameStop must be a satanic organization that only wants to sell you demonic games. No, lady, we're not paid to sell you certain games. You just wanted to buy a stupid game. Story 70. OnStar Europe is a completely pointless service, and their emergency service with crash response is more likely to kill you than help you. Not sure how it is for the US market, but their European lines, located in Luton and Bucharest, are appalling. The systems constantly fail, leaving OnStar users at the mercy of an undertrained and poorly motivated call center agent that barely knows how to speak English most of the time. Emergency services are a joke. There's no special training given to handle emergencies and crash response calls. They're the same advertisers that handle your destination downloads, and their emergency training is 1 day of a 2-week training program. Their contact with emergency response is, to put it mildly, inefficient, as most emergency lines have no idea who OnStar are. They're not calling the 112 centrals. They're calling random police stations, fire stations, and hospitals in the general area you're located, hoping to reach someone that knows what to do, and routinely spend up to 5 minutes before you actually get to talk to an emergency operator, who's the same person you'd reach by placing the call yourself. You're much better off dialing emergency services yourself. There's no sense of quality of service. People are hired based on what language they can pass off as speaking coherently. Many sit there answering 250 phone calls per day, speaking 3 to 4 languages. None of them particularly well. They don't care about actually helping you. Advisors are assessed based on how well they follow scripts only, and based on whether or not they actually assist the person calling in. Management are literally more occupied with whether someone has food on their desk or are playing solitaire during their downtime rather than trying to work on fixing the huge issues with systems and scheduling which are causing issues for the customers. Story 71. I worked at a car rental place. Your reservation means nothing. A large percent of reservations never show up, so if we have 45 reservations, usually had 15 cars on the lot. During busy times, I remember having to go pick up cars from nearby locations and the airport since we had literally 0 cars on our lot and a full lobby. Prepaid gas is actually a good deal if you bring the car back empty, because the rate will be cheaper than a local station. However, rarely do people bring it back empty, and that's how they make the money. Those cars are not washed well. We had an old school hand wash tunnel with sprayers and rags, and that's it. We vacuumed out the worst, sprayed air freshener and wiped windows, just wet the outside and moved on. It took 5 to 10 minutes to clean a car with no automatic washer. The insurance is a stupid ripoff, but our promotions were reliant on us selling it to you. We get no commission for selling you insurance, but the top person at every location is the one who will move up incredibly quickly in the company and make a bunch of money. The place was like a cult. They convince you you're capable of making it to the regional manager position, who makes an insane amount of money and gets a company car, but you had to do sketchy things to pull it off. We never flat out lied about the insurance, but many of my coworkers stretched the truth or used fear to get people to buy. Lastly, they stretched the truth on my salary, told me I would be making XXXXX a year, and at the final interview stage, I was told I would be paid a certain amount hourly, assuming I'll always work the required 50 hours a week, and it would still equal that amount in the end. Well, I ended up making about $8K less when calculating it out. I took the job because it paid way more than my previous one, and I ended up being paid less than my original job. I hated working there. I didn't last long and can't believe I fell for their new hire marketing. Story 72. I used to work at a large chain grocery store on the East Coast. The butchers would often throw meat at each other, pick it up off the filthy floor, and package it right up. Rinse your meat before you cook it, especially cuts of beef. Also, loaves of bread would fall on the floor, and rather than throw it out and make more, they just brush it off and put it out for sale. When slicing cheese, if it was found to be moldy, they just cut off the moldy parts, as long as the customer didn't see it. Then they'd throw it out and open a new one. The chicken salad in the deli was made with leftover fried chicken that was up to 5 days old. Fruit and veggies that were deemed too old to sell in the produce department were repurposed in the deli to make various salads. That delicious-looking strawberry salad is mostly mushy old strawberries that were picked out of packages with moldy ones, then made to look/taste better with strawberry glaze. Story 73. I worked as a game tester for a major game release for Xbox 360. It was bar none the worst job I've ever had in my entire life. The place was a windowless room that was nothing but long tables with 13-inch televisions hooked up to Xbox 360s. The hours were 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Monday. That's right, 7 days a week. And it was in the winter, so it was night when I arrived at work and night when I left. I didn't see daylight for almost an entire month. They paid minimum wage because video games. And this was back before the federal minimum wage was raised, so it was $6.50 an hour. And everyone who worked there was like the biggest lesseur nerd ever. Nothing but discussions about anime and fighting games and everything else. And they all smelled really bad. But my reason for posting was this. This game was a tactical FPS that had multiplayer. During testing, I found out on one multiplayer map that I could sit in a spot and literally see the spawn point of the enemy team with a sniper rifle, as in I could see them respawning within my scope and just shoot them as they appeared. I assumed this was a major bug, because as a big online gamer myself, this would be a huge exploit that players would hate on this map. I submitted it. It was declined to be fixed by the developers. I kept using it when we tested that map, hoping that it would bring the issue to the forefront. When we were testing it once, the QA lead, my direct supervisor, was on the other team. I kept killing him as he spawned and he got furious, so he started up a new multiplayer map, put every one of the testers on another team and me on my own team. I had everyone spawn camp me for like 10 minutes until he yelled, "How do you feel about spawn camping now?" As far as I know, that map was never fixed. Yeah, so I don't understand what the issue with fixing the spawn camping glitch or lack of oversight is here. Isn't that the whole point of having people test the game so that they can find these exploits? You can fix them before they're released to the mass public. Why would you stubbornly refuse to fix it and then get mad when one of your testers exploits it and kills you a bunch? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Story 74. A company I was a temp for has multiple OSHA issues, as far as I could tell, at least in the distribution center. Things like no clearly marked pedestrian walkways in high traffic areas, mainly around the pack lines. Safety barriers, like bollards and railings, have been broken. Found a bollard hanging on by a single bolt that was very loose. Another that had no bolts to speak of, and before I left, the safety railing at the end of the pallet wrapper snapped off its supports. The fix? Prop it against the wrapper. It's fine. A shelving unit that was not structurally sound in the slightest. There's these warehouse shelves, possibly 45 feet tall, with 4 shelving spots, not counting the floor. The third one up was bursted and bent like crazy. No idea how it happened, but it's been an issue since before I worked there, till after I left. Anyway, the other shelves are still usable, and sometimes some stupid high-low manages to stack a box of parts on the busted shelf. It's been blocked off with caution tape. FYI, this is an automotive parts manufacturing company, so every part is steel, save for maybe 8 parts. Each box of parts can be from around 100 pounds for partial loads of like 30 parts, all the way to nearly a ton. They make mass dampeners, basically a half-inch thick piece of steel, each part about 2 pounds. They come in boxes of, I want to say, 300. So if you have a car or truck or almost any public vehicle and it has an exhaust system, they've made parts for it. Big company. Also, there's only 7 pack lines, and they've been behind by about 7 to 12 hours since I think 2 years ago now. You'd think they'd set another 1 or 2 lines up, no? Story 75. I used to work for a survey research firm, one of those places that would call you and ask you to complete a quick survey. Most of those employees are actually just high schoolers, so when you start yelling at the person you're talking to, telling them how they're a piece of crap for bothering you, or how they need to stop being worthless and find a better job, you're usually just yelling at some poor kid at their first job. Those companies usually base their raises and layoffs and crap on the metrics for those employees, so the more people that you tell to F off for those surveys, the more people you may be screwing over and possibly getting fired. Those surveys are also usually commissioned by actual companies, so if you want to make a difference in the products and services you buy, you may want to actually complete them. However, if you don't want to waste time talking to some high school kid about your cable provider, it's super easy to get out of doing the survey without being a dick about it. The reason they call you back is because you were just a dick. You didn't disqualify yourself. If you never wanted to get called back, tell them they called your cell phone and that it's using your minutes, or tell them that you currently work in survey research or advertising. Those 2 things will pretty much guarantee that you'll be removed from the current call list. This won't guarantee that you'll be disqualified from future surveys, but it will make the call stop for whatever one they're calling you about. Also, it's super unlikely to be called for more than one survey by the same company anyway. Story 76. I worked at a for-profit film school in Los Angeles. I won't name it, but the name of the school is the name of a city, and it's not New York Film Academy, although I imagine things are similar at NYFA. I was an admissions rep, which means my job was convincing desperate kids from low-income families that they needed to enroll at this specific school, or they would never achieve their dreams. We were routinely given trainings on how to manipulate conversations with prospective students and their parents, and we were told to target veterans. Federal funding meant a guaranteed payout for the school, and kids without a lot of parental support or financial resources, as long as they could find a cosigner, they could get financial aid. We were taught how to subtly discourage parents from visiting with their kids, because parents tend to ask more discerning questions than starry-eyed 18-year-olds. I took the job thinking I'd be more like a counselor helping students decide if this was the right school for them, but what I found out was that the school does not give a crap about who enrolls, as long as they're able to pay. The admissions essays that I had to review were literally unreadable about 30 to 40% of the time. I'm not talking poorly written, I'm talking real, actual illiteracy. If those students found cosigners, they got accepted. I once brought an essay to my boss in which the applicant had literally written his name over and over for a full 2 pages because he couldn't write anything else. She insisted I approve his application. The worst part was that all of this shadiness was done under the guise of helping people achieve their dreams. Most of us reps knew what we were doing and hated ourselves for it, but there was a small percentage who actually bought into the messaging fed to us from management that we were changing lives. I didn't last long before I had to quit without another job lined up. It felt like I was destroying people's futures every day, and it was killing me. Story 77. The handheld computer the driver uses to scan packages and see all his stops and a bunch of other stuff has a god in it. If you scan a package for an address that doesn't match what the GPS is showing your location, it will start freaking out and flashing red lights and beeping. It's not accurate enough to figure out if you're at the wrong apartment usually, or if the package is for 2346 South 51st Street, and I deliver it to 2346 South 51st Avenue. Happens a lot. The GPS won't pick that up. The worst feeling in the world as a driver during peak season is pumping off 20 to 30 stops down one street, and once you finish, someone runs up to you with a package and says, "Hey, this is for Avenue, not street." 1 block over. Then you look down the street and every stop you just did has someone standing with the package looking confused. Then you have to pick them all back up and do them over again on the next street, but this time you can't use the computer because you already completed the stops, so you have to look at the packages. And now dispatch is wondering why you haven't completed a stop in 30 minutes, and they're sending you messages, but you just ignore it because you're trying to get caught up, and it's hard because the preloader didn't give a crap when he loaded your truck as usual, so nothing is in the right place, and every time you open the bulkhead door, it's stuck and there's a wall of packages. And now someone comes up to you and asks if you can find their package. They live 500,000 miles away, but they let positive their dildo they just ordered 5 minutes ago is on your truck, and you have to tell them that it's not, and they get mad when you take your 20-minute lunch but there's no time to eat, so you sort as much as you can in the back, and then you're back to delivering, and you have 150 stops left, but oh no, it's 1500 time for pickups, so you break off for pickups, but traffic is terrible, so it takes over an hour, and when you get to your first pickup, they bring out a pallet with 200 boxes, so you throw it in the back, and it's mixed with all the deliveries, which is awesome. So now you finish pickups, and you get back on route, and it's dark now, and it's cold as F, but you say, whatever, I'm just gonna push through, and you get done at 2300 and go home and cry, and then the next day you have 50 more stops, and you leave the building 30 minutes later, and the preloader was a 70-year-old who didn't care at all, and you have 140-pound packages on top of 5-pound packages. I quit after 2 years. So I kind of did that read in a parody form because of how ranty that was. This guy needs to use a frickin' period every once in a while, my god. Unless the whole point of that was just to come across as like a hyperactive rant, in which case, success. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Story 78. Worked in fast food. There's an obscene amount of salt in your burgers and fries. There's a certain amount you have to put in, and it goes well beyond your logical stop point. If you stop too early, your boss will notice and tell you to keep going. So if you're not good with high salt intake, stop eating fast food. Figure out what you're ordering before you reach the cashier because the bright moving menu above us is designed to distract/daze you so that we can offer you more expensive options while you decide. Your hunger and distraction will have you agreeing to stuff without realizing, and we pose everything as a question, so you're more likely to respond with yes. Decide what you want, then get in line and don't budge/check the menu once you get to the front of the line. Everything is well cleaned and inspections are strict as F. We kept our restaurant in top condition and clean top to bottom every day/night, and we still had trouble passing the inspection. I think we failed one based on a tiny unmopped patch of dirt on the floor. In an otherwise spotless restaurant we'd spent days taking apart in order to clean everything properly. One oversight was enough to fail the whole test, so there's definitely a lot of effort put into keeping a restaurant clean. For the most part, restaurants are in good condition. We also take regular online tests from head office about cleanliness, etc., to make sure we know what we're doing. We have no idea why the ice cream machine stops working all the time. We must have had 10 plus people all come in and try to fix it, and no one could. Story 79. I used to work for Asda/Walmart as a home delivery driver. To say they don't give a crap is an understatement. You can almost guarantee any frozen items ordered weren't very frozen by the time they reached the customer, as they were always left out in the pod while pickers finished sorting, getting the rest of the order together. That and the van freezers pretty much never went below 2 degrees Celsius. Also, you better believe your shopping had one hell of a ride before it's reached you, smashing together in the tubs as they were never packed properly. The state of some of the vans we got sent out in was just crazy. E.g., a hinge on the rear door, pretty heavy, was pulled clean off, but rather than fix it, they just duct taped the thing back on. It stayed like that for 6 months. Sent out without road tax. Overloaded turbo blown. A fellow colleague made it his duty to drive it so hard he blew the engine just to get it to be looked at. But my favorite was that if they were really desperate for a driver, they would just chuck anyone in that said they could drive, without even checking if they had a license. Plus, management was just a joke. I was involved in a head-on crash, not my fault, proven, and needed to go to the hospital badly. But nope, I got dragged back in the inventory truck and made to sit in complete agony with top managers for over an hour to give events of exactly what happened. My back is still screwed. This is literally just the few that I remember. There were plenty more. Needless to say, I never used their delivery service, even with a discount. Story 80. I won't disclose the specific chain, but I worked for a major pet retailer. Avoid getting your pets from major retailers if you can. It's not necessarily that your local store takes bad care of the pets. In fact, all of my nearest locations were pretty well staffed with folks who were knowledgeable and passionate about animals. However, the vendors they receive their pets from are garbage, and management has zero control over it. Corporate is also unwilling to change anything because, money. I was in management. Half the time, I would write in about animals I received with problems off the bat, and corporate would blame me and show off our problems. Our turtles always came in with septicemia, which was an automatic $250 plus vet bill. I kept writing to corporate, but they would say our team needed to be better about habitat maintenance. Our habitats were fine, for one, and for two, that doesn't control animals coming in with problems. I would then get yelled at for how much we were spending in vet costs. It was higher than the last manager because I actually took things to the vet when needed. We even had diseases crop up that were communicable to people. All of our other local locations were reporting the same problem, so we know it had to come from the vendor because they're the common denominator between all of us. Did corporate care? Nope. They blamed us because somehow 6 different stores spontaneously had the same disease crop up at the exact time. They pointed us towards policies that we were already following. Did they express concern or any sort of investigation into our vendor? Nope. They insisted that our vendor was trustworthy and took care of the animals, so it had to be us. This is one of the reasons I left, and the problem is still going on from what I hear. Again, it's not the employees in the store that don't care. They often stress and worry and care for the animals as if they were their own. It's corporate and how they only care about the bottom line. Story 81. The sales at Walgreens are usually crap. Look under the yellow sticky tag and you'll find that the normal price is lower than what we claim it is. 75% off. Really is like 25% if you squint. Also, if you come up with an expired tag from the previous week, we have to honor it. Don't bother asking us to check the stockroom unless we just got a truck in. The rule in my store was don't keep stock in the stockroom because the district manager hates it and thinks everything looks messy. Photo is also a joke. A good chunk of the people putting your stuff together aren't actually trained and just get thrown over there when it's busy. I learned on my feet how to put photo books together. Actual head of photo never did it right when it came to the magnets. He just stuck them in the little frame. No heat to actually secure the glue. Also, the company as a whole will gladly watch an employee burn over something that wasn't their fault. One of my coworkers lost her job after a coupon scam that cost us around $600. I was there that day. She called the manager over and asked what to do before she went ahead with the sale. Both managers gave her the go-ahead to do it, but later claimed they didn't understand or that she misunderstood what they said. She was fired after 15 years with the damn company. And finally, the reason why I'm so bitter towards them. I started in college, had my time changes approved before my first term. New store manager comes in and demands I work when I have class. I explain. Mysteriously, I have no more hours. I went 4 months with never being out on the schedule until my exit interview was emailed to me. Apparently, I quit. Someone might have told me I quit. That's something a girl ought to know, lol. I'd never work for that company again. It was a crap show the whole way through. Story 82. I worked for Sephora. I've never seen such unsanitary conditions. I was the only one who tried to be clean when doing makeovers because I was also putting myself through pre-med at the time. I'd also like to note, there are good and bad Sephoras. However, I was at the top-selling Sephora in my state and they only cared about sales and volume. First, the makeup artists have zero training. You were expected to come in with it or just figure it out. I felt lucky that I had some practice, but others gave childish, gaudy makeovers. There were even a few I felt really underprepared for. I was never asked to sanitize my hands before touching a customer. They didn't let us take breaks to wash our brushes. They didn't ask us to sanitize lipsticks before offering them to customers. I literally made up all sanitary steps I would take and made a point to do them in front of customers so they'd be comfortable. I even brought my own brush spray on appointment-heavy days because the one they provided was basically saline. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if hundreds of people got herpes from every store. Please don't try on testers or accept a makeover. Maybe try on your hands, but you need to wash your hands with soap and water and never touch your eyes. Story 83. Another one, food service again. I work in an area and we have 3 places where we serve food. A cafe setting, a club for curlers, and the hockey side where there's a concession. I usually man the concession, which serves normal sports food fare like popcorn, burgers, fries, chicken strips, hot dogs, pop, Gatorade, etc. You may think it's filthy, but we make real time to cleaning everything between shifts. We use sanitizers and cleaners that are industrial grade on every surface. Our machines are cleaned out multiple times per day. You're not eating cockroach crap. You're eating stuff that we eat on our breaks. We take a lot of pride in our food. We don't bring our own food. The stuff that we prepare often is eaten by us instead of being wasted. We just sit out of sight and eat the same crap you do. So if you have a problem, we immediately devote our time to fixing it because it affects us too. And even if we don't eat that night, we always presume that some of this is going in our stomach too. So it's better to be top-notch. This is not only true for our arena. Anywhere in my area has these standards, and we have to pass random spot tests by the health board. Story 84. American-made brake rotator castings are very tightly quality controlled. Usually. The foundry that I do work for, which pours more iron per hour than anywhere else in the world, is very picky about their rotor castings. Everything is tightly controlled, down to the chemical makeup of the iron. Everything is tested and retested. If there are any blemishes in the casting, they scrap it out. However, the people that make the patterns, while technically being ISO 9001 certified, will fudge the numbers on things to get them out the door. The stuff we fudge numbers on were typically non-critical, so we knew that it would make a good casting regardless. Funny thing is that the foundry essentially relies on us to engineer their patterns for them because they don't know how to do it themselves. We've been doing it for over 70 years and we're pretty good at it. That means we know what dimensions are critical and which can be safely fudged, even if that goes against ISO 9001. As for my company in particular, it's a miracle we're even still in business. We have 2 shops, and the smaller one that served that particular foundry was the only one that made any money. The bigger shop can't seem to ship a job on time. They have a particular job that's currently 17 weeks late. The fact that they have repeat customers is baffling. It's 100% mismanaged. The smaller shop recently had the manager retire after 45 years, and that manager was in charge of that shop for 20 years. In those 20 years, he's never had a late job. Sure, he's had to ask for extensions, and he's had some jobs go out the door that were wrong, but none were ever just straight up late. Somehow this is possible, even though most of the CNC machines they use are over 20 years old. One of their manual lathes and all 4 of their drill presses are World War II era.